Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. It's an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, my international friends, joining me as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all that sorts of good stuff. And we do have an awful lot of good stuff for us to get here to today. And listen, I want to remind you guys that when we get to our main questions, how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with all of our main topics. How do you do that? You do that by going to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you're there, you'll see a form, fill it out with your topic or question, hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your topic or question featured here on the John Campea Show, and that's how we do things here, guys. Now, we do have a number of main topics you guys submitted lined up, but before we get into those, got a couple things off the top here that we need to get to. And the first thing that we're going to talk about is this. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is now in theaters, ladies and gentlemen. It is out. I went to go see it yesterday. I've been excited for this film for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's Quentin Tarantino, for heaven's sakes. So that's a reason to be excited. Number two, you got Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio, you got Al Pacino, you got Kurt Russell, you got Luke Perry, you've got on and on and on and on. You just kind of got this who's who in this movie. It looks great. I love these period setting movies, so it's set in there. I thought the trailers have looked really good and really interesting. All that kind of stuff. Went out to go see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. What did I think about it? All right, here's my overall thoughts, and then we'll get into some specifics. And by the way, guys, I'm just going to let you know that this Sunday afternoon, because there's so much stuff to talk about here, this Sunday afternoon, we're going to do a open spoiler discussion of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, because there's a lot of stuff in there to talk about that I can't mention on the show without giving significant things away. So later Sunday afternoon, we are going to do a spoiler discussion for that. Keep your eyes open for that if you see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood this week. All right, so what did I think about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Well, I'll say this. It is not amongst my favorite Quentin Tarantino movies. Let's just put it that way. It's not amongst my favorite Quentin Tarantino movies. I didn't walk out of the theater overly in love with it. But, lest you think that's a negative, I thought it was, as I put on my social media afterwards, I think it's a very solid movie, and it's an enjoyable movie. It is an enjoyable movie. And despite the fact that the movie is about 45 minutes longer than it needs to be, despite the fact there are one or two prominent characters in the film that if you cut their character out of the film completely, the movie doesn't change at all. And despite the fact that it doesn't really have a discernible plot, which I'm sure you've heard a lot of other people say, and it doesn't. It doesn't have what you would call traditionally a plot for the movie. Despite all that, this is a movie that is packed with really magical moments. Like, there are so many moments in this film that I will be talking about with my friends for a while. You know, every movie will have a couple of moments like, oh, remember that one scene? There are like a dozen or more of those types of scenes in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood that are just incredible scenes. I could sit here and talk about, maybe I'll reference just briefly the things that you've seen in the trailer, so I'm not giving too much away, but like, there's a scene in the movie where he's talking with a young girl actress. Boom! That's a scene I want to sit down and talk about for a while. There are several scenes just between DiCaprio and Brad Pitt that I think you can just go on and on about. There's several scenes involving like things from the trailer, like when you see the people walking up at night with the knives in their hands. That whole scene I want to talk about. There's so many. Yeah, it was way too long than this film needed to be. See, 2 hours and 45 minutes is a great length for certain movies. For this movie, it was much longer than it needed to be. But it's just filled with moments. And I'll say this, and I said this on social media as well. You cannot replace Endgame as the best final 20 minutes of a movie you're going to see this year. But I'll tell you what, after Endgame, it's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Other than Endgame, I would argue, you're not going to see a better final 20 minutes in a movie this year. I feel pretty damn confident about that. I still have other movies I need to see this year, but I feel pretty confident at this point stating I don't think we're going to see a better final 20 minutes this year besides Endgame and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Okay, let's talk about this though. The performances in the film. As kind of ridiculous as the movie tries to be, The performances in it are outstanding. I loved Leo DiCaprio in this. And he's one of the absolute best actors on the planet. I know that sounds like you're saying water wet. I get it. But Leo DiCaprio is phenomenal in this. Just phenomenal in this. Brad Pitt, I haven't seen him this good in a long time. I just have not seen Brad Pitt this good in a long time. The dialogue is sharp and witty. I mean, the fact that they transformed, when you watch this movie, keep this in mind. All the exterior shots of the city and when they're driving and all that kind of stuff, none of that is CG. They really did transform Hollywood back to its 1969 state. And it's remarkable the way they did. It was absolutely beautiful. And it was, as an achievement, as a practical achievement, just doing that was really impressive. And by the way, that whole thing is one of the reasons why this film was so bloody expensive to make. Not from CGI. This is one of those situations where CGI would have been cheaper, but they actually just physically transformed a lot of Hollywood Boulevard, Sunset Boulevard, all over the round. They just did a lot of that stuff, and it's really impressive to see. I gotta say this, so I gotta get this part off my chest. One of the things that was most frustrating to me through this movie, and this ties in to the fact that I said one of the down parts about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is that for this movie, it was longer than it needed to be. And nowhere does that stand out more than the elongated, masturbatory driving shots. You know, every once in a while in a movie or a TV show, the character has to get in their car and drive from one place to another. And you'll see a cutaway, almost like a B-roll shot, a cutaway shot of, a wider angle. You see the car coming towards the camera and it drives by. Okay, that kind of tells that our character is driving somewhere. And this sounds like a nitpick, but I'm only bringing it up because it's the one thing that really frustrated me through the movie. I swear to God, I didn't take a stopwatch into the movie theater with me, and maybe it just feels this way. But if I take a stopwatch with me next time, I'm not going to be surprised. And again, maybe it just feels this way. But I'm not going to be surprised if at least 10 minutes of this film aren't taken up with those just random driving shots. Not where there's conversation going on in the car, just Brad Pitt driving in his car, and we see him driving. And then there's a wide shot so we can see Hollywood Boulevard. And then we're back in the car just with him. Nothing else is happening, just driving. And then from another wide shot from another angle of his driving. And it just felt like and then they would do it again. And then they would do it again. And I swear to God, it feels like 10 full minutes of this movie. And maybe it's much smaller than that. I'm just telling you, it felt like a good 10, 15 minutes of this movie were just taken up with gratuitous, well, I spent all this money making Hollywood look like Hollywood in 1969, so I might as well show as much of it on screen as I can. And that didn't help the movie. Now, again, I know you might be saying to yourself, John, why are you complaining about that? Just because it's the weirdest thing, but it just, every time it's kept happening again and again, it was just starting to grate on me. And I'd say now look, if the most frustrating thing about a movie that you can say is, they spent too much time on exterior driving shots. If that's the worst thing you can say about a movie, you're in pretty good shape, so that's not bad. But again, that contributed to the overall stuff. But again, this is a movie of moments. And that's where the strength of it lies. It lies in these individual scenes, and maybe they don't do a great job of the movie in connecting them narratively per se to create an overall narrative story or a plot or anything like that. Fine. But it is a movie of moments. And with a terrific finale and payoff at the end that, even though it's not amongst my favorite Quentin Tarantino films, and that's a high bar, even though it's not amongst my favorite Quentin Tarantino films, I think there's a lot to enjoy about this movie. I really do. It's a very different kind of film. I think there's a lot to do with it. And I saw somebody write to me, say, John, you just didn't understand it. Don't you love it when people say that? You just didn't understand it. This movie, it's not that it lacked a plot, it's that the movie was meant as a love letter to the Hollywood that was in 1969. It's like, I know that. But that doesn't cancel out the fact that it was still too long and that it had no plot. It's not an either or, it's a both and. It was a love letter in 1969. Or Hollywood 1969, and it was too long for its own good, didn't really have a coherent plot or a discernible plot per se. It's both and. But it absolutely was a love letter to the Hollywood of 1969, not just exterior, but also the industry of Hollywood at that time. And it's interesting and it's fascinating, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Was it as good as maybe I was kind of hoping it would be? Nah, but when you go into a Quentin Tarantino movie, your expectations are all the way up through the roof, right? But I still think it's a solid movie. I still think it's quite enjoyable, and I had a good time with it. I'm reading some people online saying they found it kind of boring, and I understand where that's coming from because, like I said, it is dragged on longer than it needed to be. But I still think, for my money, it's still quite an enjoyable film, filled with terrific scenes, not just one or two or three, but filled with some terrific scenes. And yeah, so that's my thoughts on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Again, I wish we could talk about more stuff in more detail, but I don't want to spoil anything. So this Sunday afternoon, we will be doing an open spoiler discussion on the channel. If you see the movie by Sunday afternoon, come on back and make sure you talk to us about it. All right. Let's now move on to a second thing off the top here before we get into our main topics. And that is this. One of the films that came out in the last number of years that really got everybody excited, and just from an artistic point of view, from a genre point of view, from a film fandom point of view, was Mad Max Fury Road. Now, the film didn't do great at the box office. We know that. And there has been some behind-the-scenes legal drama going on behind the scenes between the director, George Miller, and the studio, Warner Brothers. A lot of behind the scenes. George Miller thinks he is entitled to millions in bonuses because there was in his contract a bonus structure that if he brought the movie in under budget, he's supposed to get a bonus. Warner Brothers says he exceeded that budget. George Miller saying, well, the only reason we exceeded the budget is because you mandated that we spend extra money on it, and that pushed us over the budget. So there's this big legal battle going on. And it's because of the box office that it didn't blow the roof off box office. And because of this legal battle, a lot of people have been wondering, is another Mad Max movie even going to happen at this point? You know, we've been hearing for a couple of years now, that George Miller has stories. There's going to be a Furiosa movie. There's going to be this. There's going to be that. But as much as we keep hearing about this stuff, nothing ever actually comes to pass or actually transpires. So, where are we at? What's actually happening? People like me started to doubt that we're ever going to actually see anything. But George Miller just recently made some comments, and he says, no, man, a sequel to Fury Road is going to be coming. This is what George Miller, the director, said. He said, there are two stories, both involving Mad Max and also a Furiosa story. We're still solving. We've got to play out the Warner thing. Of course, that's the lawsuit going on between him and Warner Brothers. We've got to play out the Warner's thing. It seems to be pretty clear that it's going to happen. I've been there too often when you announce movies are going to happen and then they fall away. That is frustrating because that happens all the time in the movie industry. It happened 3 times on Fury Road, and eventually we got the damn thing made. We're just coming out of a meeting as we speak, and we're well into pre-production on this one. I'm cautiously optimistic it's going well. So just to go back to one of the things he said earlier, we got to play this Warner things out. It seems to be pretty clear that it's going to happen. So what it sounds like, and I don't know this for any sort of 100% certainty, but what it sounds like here is that on the one hand, Miller and Warner Brothers are fighting it out in court. And then when the court session for the day is done, that they're going out for drinks and saying, okay, let's talk about the next movie, which is actually the professional thing to do. Yeah, we're fighting over one thing, but that doesn't mean we can't keep doing business at the same time over something else. So it sounds to me, if he's saying they're into pre-production, first of all, you have to have an official studio green light to really go into pre-production. So I think he might be using, again, I'm speculating here. I think Miller might be using the term pre-production a little liberally there. Like maybe he's not literally into pre-production, but it sounds like they're working out their story and working ideas. And it sounds to me like Miller is pretty optimistic that he and Warner Brothers are going to get this other issue figured out. And he's sounding pretty confident that this new one's going to happen. And I know that that's going to make a lot of people happy hearing that. Now, it's important to keep in mind, too, that just because Miller thinks it's going to happen at this point, that doesn't automatically mean it will. And we all know that at this point. But for people who are fans of Mad Max Fury Road and looking for something to be excited about and get their hopes up for, having the director come out and say, we've got our story, we're developing and putting pieces together right now, we're working this thing out with Warner's, and I think this thing is going to happen. It looks like this is going to happen. This has got to be good news for fans of that movie. So listen, what do you think about that? Are you excited to hear that? Do you think this is just more talk and we're never going to see this thing? Do you think, yes, this is the positive sign we've been waiting for? This movie is going to happen. What do you think about it? Jump down in the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right. with that down and out of the way, let's move on to our main topics today. How do we do our main topics? Well, we already explained it. You guys send them in, so let's go over to the first one that we picked from the topics that you guys submitted. And the first topic today gets submitted to us from Patreon supporter Ben Rayner. Thank you for being a Patreon supporter, Ben, by the way. Hi, John and gang. Lion King 2019 has broken record for opening weekend for animation. Nobody is talking about it. Is it because everyone thinks it's live action? Should it be talked about? I think if this was spoken about, it would end the debate of live action and animated. Curious to hear your thoughts. All right. Thanks a lot for the question, Ben. And again, thank you for being a Patreon supporter. Yeah, so we talked about the other day about how the first report of the weekend box office had Lion King at $185 million opening weekend. In perspective, that is the second biggest opening weekend in film history for any film that wasn't a comic book movie or a Star Wars movie. If you take comic book movies and Star Wars movies out of it, the only bigger opening weekend in cinematic history was Jurassic World. Overall, at the time, it was the 9th biggest opening of all time, period, amongst any films, including comic book movies and Star Wars. Then on Monday, they adjusted those weekend numbers, and it actually went up a bunch from 185 to almost 192. Now, that means that 192, instead of being the 9th overall largest opening in film history, it's the 8th largest opening in film history, I believe. But as Ben brings up very accurately here, that actually makes it the biggest opening for an animated film in history. Now, again, there's still a lot of discussion going on about Lion King and a perception that it's alive. You know, there are still people, and I'm sure I do it sometimes too, that refer to Lion King as the live action Lion King. It's not live action. The whole movie's animated. The whole thing is animated. And as an animated film, it is now officially the #1 opening animated film in history, passing Incredibles 2. So let's take a look at the list right now. For all-time opening weekends for animated films, Inside Out sits at $90.4 million. I love Inside Out. Secret Life of Pets, which I thought was pretty damn good, opened at 104.3. Shrek 2 opened at 108. Toy Story 3, that's in theaters now, opened at 110.3 million. Minions opened to 115.2. Toy Story 4, which is in theaters right now, opened to 120.9 million. Shrek the Third, everybody keeps forgetting about how huge Shrek was. Shrek the Third opened to 121.6 million. Finding Dory opened to 135.1. Then Incredibles came out and smashed the opening weekend record for animated film at 182.7 million, but now that has been beaten by The Lion King at $191.8 million. Now, it's important to keep in mind that none of this means that Lion King is the greatest movie in the world just because it broke that record. I mean, I love Lion King. I think it's fantastic. Much better than a lot of the other crap that Disney Studios proper has been putting out in the past little while. I mean, we've been talking a lot lately about some of the crap they've been putting out, like Wrinkle in Time, which I thought was just a bad film. Nutcracker and the Four Realms, bad film. Dumbo, I know a bunch of you guys like Dumbo, and I respect that, but to me, it was a very disappointing movie. And while I was really excited about Lion King, the one little thing, a bit of apprehension in the back of my mind is Disney Studio proper hasn't been doing, like, their record lately has kind of been hit and miss at best, but I thought it was great. But you're right, Ben, this kind of does once again put it to the forefront. This is an animated film. Even though it looks real, it doesn't look like your traditional cartoon, it is still, nonetheless, the practice of animation. And just another little, feather in its cap. Not only is it the second biggest opening of all time for a non-comic book or Star Wars movie, 8th biggest overall opening weekend of all time, it is the #1 all-time opening weekend for animated films. And I think that does put it in perspective. And I think that's something that's worth mentioning, Ben. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Thank you for doing that. All right. With that down and out of the way, let's move on to our second main topic today. And our second main topic today gets sent in to us from David Gornitsky, who writes, "Hi, fellow Canadian. I just found Regal has posted official details on their site, search Regal Unlimited. It looks like the leak was accurate. What are your thoughts now that it's official?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, we've been talking about this for ages. Ever since AMC A-List came out, we've been talking, listen, Regal's going to come out with their plan. It's only a matter of time. They are going to come out with their own movie membership plan. Then a few weeks ago, we talked on the show about some of the whispers and rumors that came out. We heard there were going to be 3 different tiers. One tier would only get you so many movies. Another tier would let you into the big premium movies like 3D and 4DX and all that, and IMAX and all that kind of stuff. Blah, blah, blah. Well, now the actual details are out. And here's what we got. All right. For Regal Unlimited, there are indeed 3 tiers. All right. There are 3 tiers to the Regal Unlimited plan, which I don't think they understand what the word unlimited means. Anyway, the regular Regal Unlimited plan means you can watch regular 2D movies. We'll talk more about that in a minute, but regular 2D movies in less than half of their theaters. So you got to look up which theaters are included on the regular tier of Unlimited to which theaters. Now, again, I know it's semantics, but let me go into this again. If you're going to name your frickin' movie membership, Unlimited, then you damn well better give me all your movie theaters. I just don't understand that. Okay, so the name of the program is Unlimited. Yes. But I am limited as to which theaters I can go to. Yes. It's called Unlimited? Yes, sir. But it's actually limited. Yes, sir. I know it's just semantics, but they should have come up with a different name. Anyway, so the first tier, which is $18 a month, you get access to 200 of their theaters. Again, you have to look at their theater list to see which theaters fall into which plan. Then they have Unlimited Plus. Again, semantics. If it's unlimited, it's unlimited. Anyway, Unlimited Plus, which gets you access to 400 of their theaters. Okay, so double the amount of theaters that Regal Unlimited does. That's at $21 per month plus tax. Then their granddaddy program is Regal Unlimited All Access. Isn't that what unlimited means? Never mind. Regal Unlimited All Access, which is just basically you can use your membership at any Regal theater. At any Regal theater, you can use your membership. Now, there's a few things, though, to keep in mind. So that's interesting, 3 different tiers. And hey, if you live in a place that has one of the cheaper theaters, you spend $18 a month plus tax. But again, unlike the rumors that came out earlier, this does not include, none of the tiers include the premium movie screenings. Because the original rumor said that Regal was going to have different tiers, but at the higher tier, it would allow you to go in and see IMAX movies or 3D movies or 4DX movies, whatever their premium format is called. That's not the case. All 3 tiers are only for regular 2D screenings, all right? They are only for regular 2D screenings. Here's some of the other key points we got to look at. When you sign up for Regal Unlimited, your minimum commitment is 1 year and it is non-cancelable. You cannot cancel it. Now, AMC A-List had something similar, but when you first signed up for A-List, you had a minimum commitment of 3 months. Regal's is you have a minimum commitment of 1 full year, and you cannot cancel it. Okay? I think in their terms and conditions, there are a few very extreme situations where you can cancel it, but just for general understanding, it's non-cancelable. You sign up, you're committed for a year. And if it's a good program, that's not really a big deal. But anyway, that's important to notice. Another big important fact about the Regal plan is this. Membership only gets you a regular 2D screening in non-premium seats. I'm not quite sure. I'll be clear. I'm not quite sure what Regal's terms and conditions mean by premium seats. I don't live anywhere near Regal, so those of you who do frequent Regals, you probably know what it's talking about. But your movie pass, your Regal Unlimited card, only gets you access to 2D screenings, but I thought it was called Unlimited. Yes, sir. But I'm limited to which movies I can see. Yes. Then why do you call it Unlimited? Because it's unlimited. Anyway, semantics again. You can only go to 2D screenings and in non-premium seats. You can go to a premium format screening, 3D, RPX, IMAX, 4DX, for an upcharge. Now, I didn't see in their terms and conditions how much their upcharge was going to be. But if you have a Regal Unlimited membership, you can pay extra when you're booking your ticket to see a 3D, IMAX, or 4DX on top of your membership fee. And maybe that'll just be like $2, or maybe that'll be $1.50. whatever. But there is an upcharge. And there's another upcharge for reserve premium seating for an additional upcharge. So you could pay two. Again, I'm not clear on what a Regal's premium seating is, but you could be in a position where you're using your unlimited card to get a seat, and you may have to pay two upcharges. If it's a 3D screening RPX or a premium seat, you could be paying two upcharges. Now, also another benefit of this card is that it gets you 10% off all food and non-alcoholic drinks. And if you're somebody who likes to spend a bunch of money at a concession stand, that's a nice little perk, 10% off. It's not a huge discount, but it is a discount. So there's that. There's a couple of other little things, though, that I want to mention. According to Deadline, now I didn't see this in the terms and conditions myself, but according to Deadline, every time you use your Regal Unlimited pass, every single time, even when it's a regular 2D screening, according to Deadline, there's a 50-cent surcharge. It's like, wait a minute. I thought it was unlimited. Yes. Unlimited 2D screenings. Yes. But you're charging me an additional 50 cents. Yes. So according to Deadline, every transaction has an additional 50 cents added on top of it. And then if you want a premium seat in a 3D screening, you're paying two more upcharges. For every movie you go to see, you could be paying as many as 3 additional charges on top of your actual membership. Now, you might be sitting there listening to me and saying, well, this sounds like it sucks. You know what? I actually still think this is a pretty good deal. Think about it. All right? Think about it. Let's say you're like me and you live in LA, and I believe the LA screens require you to have the Regal Unlimited All Access. So let's, for argument's sake, I'm paying $23.50 a month plus tax for my card, right? Chances are a regular ticket to that movie theater is probably, let's go on the low end and say $15. I guarantee you it's more than that, but let's go on the low end and say $15, okay? So let's say you're paying $23.50 plus tax for your card, and we'll go really low. A regular movie ticket costs $15. Okay. Let's say that in a month, I go to 3 movies. Just 3 movies for the entire month, all right? That's $45 if I got the cheapest of cheap tickets. That's $45 in tickets that I would have needed to buy. With Regal's Unlimited, even with the 50-cent upcharge, I'm paying around $25 a month for that pass. $25 is $20 cheaper than $45, which is what I would have been paying to buy 3 movie tickets. You just saved $20. Now, I know there are some people yelling and screaming, it's not as good as A-List. You're right. It's not as good as AMC A-List. It's not. But that doesn't mean it's not still a good deal. Like for almost a year now, I've been getting regular messages from film fans around the country that lament that they don't have an AMC theater near them and all they've got is Regal, so they can't have any kind of a real movie pass. But now you do, and it's a good deal. And guess what? The more movies you go to per month, the better of a deal this Regal plan becomes. So let's say you go to 1 movie a week. Well, now you're at 4 movies that you're going to that month, just for going to 1 movie a week. And at the cheapest of the cheap tickets, at $15, that's $60 you would have spent in tickets instead of $25, $26, $27. So while I will say, looking at all of these things, looking at the little asterisks, looking at the different levels and all that kind of stuff, while I will say, while looking at all this, that this Regal Unlimited plan is not as good as AMC A-List, it's still a good deal if you are a regular moviegoer. I still think that if you are a regular moviegoer and you live near a Regal cinema, this is a great option for you because it will save you a bunch of money. It will. It'll save you a bunch of money. Not as good as AMC's plan. There's nothing about it. But by the way, I should mention this too. There's one thing about Regal's Unlimited plan that is better than AMC's plan, and that is this. AMC A-List limits you to 3 movies per week. So that's 12 movies a month. It's plenty. It's plenty. But still, AMC A-List limits you to 3 movies per week. The Regal Unlimited card, it's unlimited. You could go to a movie every single day. You can go to a movie every single day. And I think that is the one key thing about the Regal plan that is an advantage over AMC A-List. Not that many of you are going to movies every single day, but it is something to keep in mind. It is an advantage. So, bottom line, I know as consumers, we want deals that give us almost everything for nothing. I know, that's what we want. This is not everything for nothing, but I still contend this is a really good deal. Not as good as A-List. Could have done some things a little better. Maybe it's a little bit more convoluted and there's a few too many asterisks in their deal. Granted. But at the end of the day, if you go to 3 or more movies a month, this deal, I don't know which way to point, this deal will ultimately save you money and be a benefit to you as a film fan. And not as good as A-List, but I think it's still pretty damn good. What do you guys think about this Regal Unlimited? But it's limited, I know. What do you think about this Regal Unlimited plan? Dumb name for a program. Jump down. Do you think it's a good deal? Do you think, no, this isn't very good at all? What are you thinking about that? Jump into the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, with that down, let's move on to our third main topic today. And our third main topic today gets sent in to us from John Matt, who writes, "Hey, John, love the show." Thank you so much, John. Great first name, by the way. "Allegedly, Henry Cavill would still play Superman under one condition. Cavill said that he was interested to return as Superman in another movie and, quote unquote, explore how it affects someone with absolute power. Personally, I would love to see Cavill come back as Supes. Do you think it would be a good idea to bring him back, or should Warner Brothers recast just like Robert Pattinson's Batman?" All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. And so this is where this is all coming from. So there are some headlines out there like on Cinema Blend. I love the Cinema Blend website, by the way. There are some headlines saying, maybe you've seen these running around. Henry Cavill lays out the one condition that he would need met in order to come back as Superman. Henry Cavill says he'll come back as Superman under one condition. It's like, so where's all this coming from? Here's where this is coming from. All these headlines you're seeing coming, this is where they're coming from. A random dude was at San Diego Comic-Con, bumped into Henry Cavill. Henry Cavill told him this, and he put it up on his Twitter. Now, it should be mentioned that this random person at Comic-Con who claims to bump into Henry Cavill, it should be mentioned that included with his tweets is a big picture of him and Henry Cavill together on the streets of San Diego at Comic-Con. So this is a guy who did indeed bump into Cavill, probably had a chance to have a quick word with him. So just keep that in mind. I'm not saying that automatically makes this true, but it is something you need to keep in mind. Okay, so what did Henry Cavill say? Well, he says in a series of tweets that I run into Cavill, it was great. We talked about this, talked about that. He talked about Cavill saying that, yeah, he would want, if he were to come back as Superman, he would want something. This is one of the tweets that came out of that. And again, this is the user at i6hitman. Who wrote this. And in one of the tweets talking about his encounter with Cavill, this is how he phrased it. He said he still wants to play Superman, wants, though, a sequel to Man of Steel. He wants a sequel to Man of Steel. Wants to explore how it affects someone with absolute power. So many stories to tell of what makes him tick. So where all these things are coming from that you're seeing these headlines for is that this guy some random guy bumped into Henry Cavill who told him a couple of things. But again, you do got to keep in mind that he clearly did bump into Henry Cavill, got his picture with him, all that kind of stuff. So that's verified. So what do we think about something like Henry Cavill having a condition under which that would require him to come back to Superman? For me, there's a couple things that come to mind. Let me say this first off the top. You guys know Henry Cavill is my favorite Superman. I love Henry Cavill, and I am the world's, maybe more than Henry Cavill himself or Henry Cavill's mama. I am the world's biggest fan of Man of Steel. There is nobody who likes Man of Steel more than me. That may be a good thing, that may be a bad thing, I don't know, but it is what it is. I adore Man of Steel. I love this film, and I love Henry Cavill as Superman. I desperately want him back as Superman. That said, I think it has been kind of clear for a while, and I think these comments only make it more clear that Henry Cavill is probably actually done. Because if you were still going to be Superman, you don't say, I still would like to be Superman. You say, Hell, kid, I am Superman. But they're not saying that. And saying things like, oh, I would still like to be Superman. I'd like this, and this. Gosh, that sounds awfully similar to the talk that Ben Affleck and his crew were giving people for the 2 years that we all knew he was already done as Batman. They just weren't admitting it at that point. Oh no, I remember Ben Affleck at Comic-Con. I still want to be Batman. I'll crawl on all fours like an ape for Matt Reeves to be Batman. Blah blah. Remember that? Remember that? This is starting to sound really similar to that. This is starting to sound really similar to that. Oh, sure, I'd still like to be blah blah blah. I think the fact of the matter is, despite all of my crossed fingers and all of my wishing upon a star, and all of me throwing coins into fountains at a mall, and all the wishes that I've been making, I think it's becoming more and more clear that Henry Cavill's not going to be Superman anymore. And that breaks my heart. I know it breaks a lot of your hearts. I also don't think it would be Henry Cavill's place. I don't think it's Henry Cavill's place as an actor to say what the next Superman movie should be about. It's not his place. The next Superman movie should be about what it's like for a character to have absolute power. And how does that affect you? That's kind of, in a way, what Bryan Singer was going for with Superman Returns. It was kind of more looking at it as a character study with Brandon Routh about what happened, the isolation that comes when you're basically a god amongst mortals. You know, he tried that approach and the audience seemed to reject it. And I don't know that it's Cavill's place to say out, I'll come back, but only if the movie's about this. Henry, I love you. You're one of my favorite, but that's not your place. It's not your place. So unfortunately to me, I think what all the signposts are pointing towards is that whenever Warner Brothers does get around to doing another Superman, and they, look, Superman has been a very divisive character amongst the fans for the last couple of years. A lot of people do not like Man of Steel, despite how much I love it. A lot of critics didn't like Man of Steel, despite how much I love it. A lot of people didn't like the Superman iteration that we had in Batman versus Superman. A lot of people didn't like the Superman iteration we got in Justice League. There's just a lot of fans that don't like this iteration of Superman. I think they like Henry Cavill, but they just didn't like the iteration that they had. So what we have here is Warner Brothers taking a step back and saying, we're going to let Superman sit on the burner for a while because we've got some work to do on it. And it looks like to me that Warner Brothers' position on this is we need to revamp. And much like they're revamping Batman with Robert Pattinson, I think at some point in the next couple of years, we're going to get an announcement about somebody else being our new Superman. And I don't think it's going to be Henry Cavill. Is it impossible that Henry Cavill could still come back and be Superman again? No, it's not impossible. And again, I will have confetti falling from, I will have people come in to throw confetti, I will wear a party hat, and I will be celebrating with everybody else. If the day ever comes that they announce that they're going to make another Superman movie with Henry Cavill, I'll be partying it up with everybody. But I don't think that's what they're doing. I hope I'm wrong, and it's certainly not impossible. So if you've got hope for it still, keep hope alive. I'm just saying, honestly, I think it's looking kind of grim at this point. Anyway, what do you guys think about all that? Jump down in the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right. With that down and out of the way, let's move on to our fourth main topic today. And our fourth main topic today gets sent in to us from Hank Dunn, who writes, "Oh my God, John, it finally happened. Spider-Man Far From Home is now the first Spider-Man movie to make $1 billion. Although it's not my favorite, I still really enjoyed it and I'm glad for its success. What do you make of this news and what does this mean for the future of the webhead?" All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. And yes, we were talking before, we did this story about it probably last week where Spider-Man Far From Home had officially become the highest grossing Spider-Man film of all time. We knew it was only a matter of time before it got to $1 billion. But now it's done. It has now crawled over that mark. It is now officially not only $1 billion film and the newest member of the $1 billion Club, it is the first Spider-Man film ever to do it. And it is still really weird when you think about that. Now look, the unfortunate thing about the $1 billion Club is that everybody's starting to think that the $1 billion Club is easy. It's not. Less than 50 films in film history have ever achieved it. And Spider-Man is now one of them. So people, I think, are not appreciating just how big of a deal this is. But when you think about the Spider-Man franchise, there's a lot. Look, no Spider-Man film other than Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is the best Spider-Man movie, but no Spider-Man movie other than Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. So no live-action Spider-Man movie has ever made less than $700 million at the box office. Think about that. No live-action Spider-Man movie ever has made less than $700 million at the box office. And when you think about huge hits like Spider-Man 2 and all that, you would just you'd be forgiven if you would at some point were just assuming that Spider-Man already had at least one of its films in the $1 billion club, but it's never happened. It took Marvel and Sony teaming up together to get this to $1 billion. Now, it should also be noted that technically speaking, and I know this won't sit well with some people, technically speaking, this does not count as a MCU Disney $1 billion film. This is technically a Sony $1 billion film. Spider-Man Far From Home is now also, for now, the second biggest film in Sony's history. Their biggest film in film history was, I believe, Bond Skyfall. I believe James Bond Skyfall, 007. And I think Spider-Man is going to pass it. But right now, it's the second biggest film in Sony history, big $1 billion film. What does this mean for Spider-Man moving forward? Honestly, I don't think it changes anything. Whether it made 900 million or $1 billion, it's a big hit. Look, where we're at right now is Sony is in a perfect position. Everything is happening exactly as Sony wants it to happen. They have their own comic book universe going, and it's pretty successful right now. They're winning Oscars for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Venom was a delightful, fun little movie that made over $800 million at the box office. They got Morbius coming. They're talking about a Kraven the Hunter, blah, blah. And they are doing it all without Spider-Man there. That's a win for Sony. On the other hand, for Sony, they've got their Spider-Man character in the MCU making oodles of money for them there. They're winning over here, and they're winning over here. Normally, you got to pick one, but everything is coming up Sony. They are loving it right now. So to me, if there's any significance to this movie hitting $1 billion, it's simply this. They ain't going to change anything for a little while. Sony wants to keep Spider-Man over there to keep making all that money, and they're going to want to keep going with their own thing and keep making money and winning Oscars over there. Everything is turning up Sony, and I think if there is any significance, it's just that things are working out perfectly for Sony, and I think they're going to keep it just the way it is. What do you guys think about this? Spider-Man Far From Home becoming the first Spider-Man movie to cross $1 billion. Jump down to the comment section below and leave me your thoughts. All right, with that down, let's now move on to the final main topic today. And the final main topic today comes to us from Brandon C., who writes, Netflix's current binge strategy of dropping an entire series all at once is hurting them in the long run. Other services like Hulu, HBO, and Disney Plus are, or will be, using a more traditional weekly release schedule for series. Should Netflix adapt to a weekly release schedule in the near future? All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. And listen, this is actually something that we've brought up a little bit as a side note over the past year or so. That I know for a fact that there are discussions going on inside of Netflix about experimenting with taking a couple of series and moving them to a week-by-week release. No decisions have been made as far as I know, but I know those discussions have been going on. Why would they do that? And why do I think that's a good idea? Well, first of all, let me tell you why I like it the way it is. I like it the way it is because when they drop Lucifer season 3, I can binge the whole thing in like 2 days, and I love it. I love, as an audience member, just being able to binge. Drop the series, binge, if I like it. Binge the whole thing in 2 or 3 days. I love that. I get a big kick out of it. I adore it. That's what I like them doing. But while I like it the way it is, the smart thing is to change it to a week after week schedule. And here's why. You know what nobody talks about anymore? Stranger Things season 3. It's not coming up anymore. It's not being discussed anymore. And if it is, it's on a very small scale. It just came out a blink of an eye ago and it's already out. It's gone. It's done. We don't talk about it. People aren't talking about it over the water cooler at work. People aren't hounding their friends week after week. My God, this new episode is amazing. You got to get on this show. That's not happening. The slow burn word of mouth as a show is great. And week after week, first episode comes out and it's awesome. Everybody talks about it. But guess what? Next week, another episode comes out and everybody's buzzing about it again. Now you're getting all that buzz. And then a week later, it comes out again. And now everybody's buzzing about it again. And then a week later, another episode comes out and and you get this prolonged, sustained, organic growth and buzz from the audience, sharing, talking to people, building excitement as things go. And you know what? Chernobyl only had a couple of episodes. But one of the things that got me turned on to it, besides the fact that the trailers look great, was the fact that as episode 1 dropped, everybody talked about it. It's like, Campea, you got to see this. Campea, you got to see this. Episode 2 comes out. Everybody talked about it again the next week. Campea, you got to see this. Campea, you got to. Episode number 3, and I think it's when 3 came out that I started getting caught up. But episode number 3 comes out, and everybody again, you got to see this, you got to see this, you got to see this. It's that traction, that prolonged exposure and traction and buzz that really helps build your show. Now look, Stranger Things season 3, I believe was like one of the, if not the biggest, most highly watched show in the history of the platform of Netflix. But can you imagine how big it would be if everybody kept talking about it for 2 months or 3 months, where week after week, a new episode drops, buzz, 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 buzz. New episode drops, buzz, buzz. And now again, let me reaffirm, as a viewer, I really prefer just having it drop and watching the whole damn thing. I plan on watching The Boys today, all of it. I don't know how I'm going to squeeze it all into one day, but I'm going to watch all of The Boys today because I like doing it that way. But that's my preference. The smarter thing is not always what my preference is. And I think the smarter thing is here that Netflix needs to at least experiment with going to a week after week schedule and start taking advantage of organic buzz and growth for their shows that I think could take their stuff to new heights. I think it could take their stuff to new heights. I really do. Again, I like getting it all bingeable when they drop it all at once, but I just think this might be the smarter thing for them to do. All right, guys, that will do it for all of the main topics today. Thank you for that. And we're going to get to our live questions here in just a bit because a lot of you guys have been firing in a lot of live questions. But I would be remiss, and I hate this. I hate this, that I have to do this. I hate it with everything in my bloody body. But I'm getting inundated from people writing to me about this. And so I've really got no choice but needing to address this. Again, unfortunately, because I don't want to, and it seems like a phenomenal waste of my time. Here's the thing. The Andy Signore situation has come up, and I hate, first of all, what the fuck do I have to do with Andy Signore's situation? What the fuck do I have to do with this situation? What does any of this have to do with me? Why am I even being dragged into this? Like what's going on? Okay. So when the Andy Signore situation happened, that came up 2 years ago. And for those of you who don't remember, Andy Signore was accused of sexual assault and all that kind of stuff and blah, blah, blah. I refused to address it on my YouTube channel because that is not what my YouTube channel is for. My YouTube channel is to talk about, and I resent now that I have to fucking take time to address this bullshit that has nothing to do with me. But some guy is trying to take advantage of the spotlight that's on him now and use me to help keep his momentum going. It bothers the hell out of me. And yet here we are. So here's what it is. Andy Signore was accused of sexual assault. Several women came forward, talked about a bunch of different things, only one, I believe, straight up accused him of assault. A bunch of people said certain things, but wasn't assaulted, and a bunch of all this other talk. But at the time, despite the fact that I was getting peppered by people asking me to address it on my show, I would say, not going to address it for a couple of reasons. Number one, that is not what my YouTube channel is for. My YouTube channel is for us to talk about movies and the things we love. On top of all that, I said at the time, I'm not saying what he's being accused of isn't true, but I don't know that it's true. So who am I to even address it? That has nothing to do with me. And so at the time, I made the decision that I'm not going to address this on my channel. Now, what I did do a little bit later was I have a personal blog. And I decided, because of the amount of people that were demanding that I comment on it, and I get why people were demanding me to comment on it, because I was in a similar, not identical, but a similar job position as Andy was in. I was heading up one thing, he was heading up another. So I get it. People wanted somebody to comment on it who was in a similar job situation as Andy was. But my position at the time was, I don't want to talk about this on my YouTube channel. I'm not going to use my YouTube channel for this. But I decided to go on my personal blog and I wrote a blog. But even in my blog post, all I said about Andy Signore was, hey, listen, as for me, I've not had a lot of interaction with Andy, but he was on my panel once, and I was on one of his shows once. And whenever I have had an interaction with Andy, it's been positive. I said, again, I'm not commenting what anybody else's experience was. I just said in the blog post, my personal experiences with Andy have all been good. We weren't buddies or hanging out and having drinks or anything like that, but I said my experiences with Andy Signore, as limited as they were, have all been positive. And I don't know if these things are true. This is what I said in my blog post. I don't know if these things are true. I wasn't there. But what I decided to do was to take that opportunity to talk about the larger issue, about Hollywood as a whole, because the whole Harvey Weinstein thing was going on and blah, 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 blah. So I used it to discuss that. Okay. So then the other day, I'm doing my walk and talk from the treadmill. I was doing the walk and talk, and somebody asked, John, can you comment on the Andy Signore situation? Because Andy just recently put up, his court case was settled. He put up some correspondence and texts and emails between people that shed a different light on the situation. Again, I wasn't there. I don't know what's true and not true. I don't know what's true and not true. I never said it was true when it's happened. I'm not going to say it's true or not true now. I have no idea, because it's none of my effing business. It's none of my business. So somebody asked me to comment on the Andy Signore situation, and I said again, hey guys, when this first came up, I said this, and I will say it again. My YouTube channel is not for talking about other YouTubers' drama. It's not what my channel is for, which again makes me resent that I have to sit here and spend time doing this. But I said in my podcast, guys, my channel is not for talking about other YouTubers' drama. And maybe over the 10 years that I've been doing this, maybe I've slipped on doing that once or twice, but I don't want to be that. And this is not what my channel's for. So with all due respect for you asking the question, I'm not going to comment. I wasn't attacking Andy. Just like I didn't attack Andy previously. I wasn't doing any of that. So you would think that a guy in Andy Signore's situation, who has now been able to, and by the way, good for him, who has now been able to come forward, share some things with the public that he was not permitted to do before, and start the process of rebuilding his career. You would think he would want to start by trying to rebuild his career. Or if he had an axe to grind with anybody, you would think that the people he would want to grind an axe against are, I don't know, the people that worked with him and piled on him when everything was going on, or people who are actually making accusations against him. I'm not saying he should have done that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he should have done that. But I got notified this morning. I had a friend of mine write to me who, ironically enough, worked with Andy Signore at one point and said, did you see that Andy just put up a video about you? I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? So sure enough, I go over and watch this video about Andy, who instead of trying to get all this stuff put behind him and move forward through building his career, has decided to keep making videos about this topic. And you know what? Damn. If he was taking shit about it for 2 years, maybe the damn man is entitled to vent a bit. So, maybe that's the case. Hell, if I was taking shit for 2 years, I'd probably want to vent on it a bit too. So I'm not going to hold that against him. But he decides to make a video complaining about me, which at first when I was told about this, I'm like, well, that can't be possible. I have nothing to do with Andy. I got nothing to do with Andy. Well, why would he be making something about it? So here's what he did. So he made this video today that said the hypocrisy, which by the way, he needs to get an education and learn what hypocrisy means. The hypocrisy. And he uses me as an example. So he quotes me saying on my podcast the other day, hey, look, I said before, and he played the clip of me saying, my YouTube channel is not for talking about other YouTubers. My YouTube channel is not for this, so I respectfully decline to comment on it, just as I declined to comment it on my YouTube channel before. And then Andy says, you're lying. Here's your blog post. Since when the fuck is my blog post my YouTube channel? I said, my YouTube channel is not for talking about drama with other people. All right? It's not for talking about other YouTubers and drama going on with YouTubers. My YouTube channel, and again, let me state for the fourth time, I resent the fact that I even have to address this right now. My YouTube channel is to talk about the things we love, to talk about movies and movie news and whatever. And yes, on my personal blog back in the day, I did put up a post that said, my experiences with Andy have always been positive, and I don't know what really happened, so I don't have an opinion. But let's talk about the larger issue about what's going on in Hollywood and society as a whole with these things on my personal blog. I did not talk about it on my YouTube channel. That is not what my YouTube channel is for. And by the way, even though the blog post I had put up was saying my experiences with Andy have all been positive, I don't know if what he's being accused of is true or not. It's not my place to have an opinion, blah, blah, blah. Even then, and even though it was on my personal blog and not my YouTube channel, which I reserve for only movies and movie news and things we love, I still felt uncomfortable about it. I thought, you know what? No, I don't want to get dragged into this. So shortly after putting up that post years ago, I deleted it. I thought, this is, even though it's my blog, not my channel, I don't want to be involved in this. So I just pulled it down. So, and then Andy goes, well, John lied again because he says he doesn't want to talk about that things. And then he brings up examples where I talk about the movie industry and the things about, the things that went on with John Lasseter and things like that, because these were things that directly affected the movie industries and the movies that you and I watch. And what I said was, my YouTube channel is not here to talk about the drama of other YouTubers. That's not what I'm here to do. And yes, I did do a couple of stories over the years about the John Lasseter thing, because I'm sorry, but the head of Pixar needing to step down is a big movie issue, and I needed to talk about it. But again, that's not in contradiction to me saying I'm not here to talk about the drama of behind-the-scenes drama of other YouTubers. And it is frustrating to me that I, who have had nothing to do with any of this, that Andy Signore decided to try to use me to shine a spotlight on himself some more, is completely frustrating and irritating. Especially considering there are a lot of people who were piling up on him, especially considering I had a bunch of people at that time who've worked with Andy coming to me and telling me about a lot of stuff that I kept my mouth shut because I wasn't there. I don't know what's true and not true, and I'm not going to pile up on the guy because I don't know. It's none of my business, and that's not what my YouTube channel is for. To wake up this morning and get a message from somebody that says Andy Signore has decided to blindside me with this. When I've had nothing to do with the dude, is astonishing. Astonishing. And again, I resent the fact that I've got to come on here and waste your time and waste my time having to address it. I am still not going to address the accusations against Andy. I'm not going to give my opinion about what I think he is guilty of or not guilty of. I am not going to address Andy's initial video releasing to the world some correspondence that he had, which he had. The only thing I'll comment on is that he had every right to do that. He had every right to do that. That's in as far as I'm going to go, and that's in as far as I'm going to say. I'm not going to address all the other people that know Andy that have talked to me about stuff. I'm not going to address any of that crap because it's none of my effing business. And why this guy who I've had no communication with, decide to drag me into this somehow when there are a lot of other people who were piling on him that if he wanted to make an example of anybody, I don't know. But it's frustrating. It's really frustrating. And I wrote to Andy on his YouTube channel today, just saying, basically, dude, I recommend you adopt a different strategy. Trying to drag people into this who've had nothing to do with your situation before, particularly somebody who kept his mouth shut about you this whole time and never said a thing about you other than to say that my experiences with you have been positive experiences. And I don't apologize for that because it's true. My experiences that I personally had one-on-one with Andy were always positive. They always were. People didn't like it when I said that when he was being accused. Like, how can you say that about Andy? He's doing all this kind of stuff. I said, I don't know about any of the stuff that Andy's accused of. All I can say that I know for a fact is that the few experiences I've had with Andy have been positive. And that's the truth. I'm just speaking truth to it. And I'm not going to speak to something I don't know the truth about. So that is going to be the last I say about this. If Andy Signore, who's going to try to rebuild and has every right to try to rebuild his career at this point, wants to drag this out, let him. I have no idea why he pulled this bullshit. I have no idea why he dragged me into this. I have no idea. I mean, even his own video is completely contradictory. Campea said you don't talk about this stuff on your YouTube channel. And yet here you are with a blog post that was a personal blog that wasn't my YouTube channel. That I said specifically, that's not what my YouTube channel is for. And I only said neutral things in the blog post about you, other than the positive things I said about you. And even then I didn't want to be a part of that discussion. So shortly after I put the blog post, I took it down. To drag me into this is some first-rate bullshit. Andy, move on. Move on with your career. Move on with your life. Move on from me. Because listen, buddy, I say this all the time and I'll say it again. The only thing that happens when you get into a shit-slinging contest is everybody ends up smelling like shit. The only thing that happens when you get into a shit-slinging contest is that everyone ends up smelling like shit. I have no interest in that. I had no interest in being a part of your narrative. Why you brought me into this is completely beyond me. But leave me out of it, dude. Go do your thing. Rebuild your life. Rebuild your career. You know, you've been given an opportunity here. Go do it. But dude, leave me out of it. I have nothing to do with you. You know, we had been colleagues in the past. My experiences with you have been positive. And I never said anything. So I would recommend highly that you drop it. Move on to something else, dude. You got this chance. Don't squander it now on trying to pick fights with people who've had no beef with you. Move on, man. Move on. You got a chance here. You got an opportunity. Take advantage of it. Anyway, that was a big effing waste of time. But I guess I just sort of had to address it, and I'm never going to address this again on any level. So there's that. Anyway, with that down, guys, and I'm sorry you guys had to be subjected to that phenomenal waste of time, but it is going to be the only time that I ever address it, and so done. Let's go on now and talk about the things you guys actually want to talk about, the real stuff. Let's move on to the live questions. All right, our first live question today comes us from Oscar Fierro Cruz, who writes, "Do it, John. Do your Man of Steel spoiler talk." Well, I already did a Man of Steel spoiler talk back in the day. By the way, guys, it is hot in the San Fernando Valley right now, so I'm going to turn on the AC and get the AC flowing. Let's see. Do it, John. Do your Man of Steel spoiler talk. Well, I already did one at another place that I work, so I don't really know that there's a reason to do another one. And I did with John Schnepp. Oscar also writes, maybe spoiler talks for old movies could be fun. I always thought spoiler talks for old movies could be fun, but quite frankly, I don't think there would be a lot of interest. Honestly. Now, a bunch of people can say, well, I'd be interested, but I really don't think there would be enough numbers to justify the amount of time it takes to make a video about that. But it is something I've always considered, so I will continue to consider it, Oscar. All right. Jordan's Channel writes, have you heard anything about the DCEU? Feels like there's no plan. As a fan of the MCU, I'd like to see them try to do a connected universe again. They've got a plan. They're just not revealing their plan right now. They've got a plan. They're just not revealing their plan right now. And why do more connected stuff when what they're doing is working? Aquaman was $1 billion film, despite the fact that some people didn't think it would ever hit $1 billion. I thought it would be successful. Like I said from day one, I think Aquaman will be successful, but I never thought it'd get to $1 billion, ever. And it did. So you got Aquaman at $1 billion. Shazam was a fan favorite and a critic favorite. We got Wonder Woman 84 coming out with Patty Jenkins directing it. I have full confidence it's going to be a big hit. So their current strategy seems to be working and seems to be working well. So as a matter of fact, Shazam is my second favorite MCU or DCEU movie, right behind Man of Steel. And you guys know I on some level like all of the DCU films, but I particularly really like Shazam a hell of a lot. Shazam was awesome. And they're on a roll, man. They're on a roll. They're not revealing their plan. That doesn't mean they don't have a plan. Trust their system for now. Hamada's come in. They've instituted a new way of doing things. And so far, the results have been really good. $1 billion enjoyable Aquaman film, a highly enjoyable Shazam film. We got Wonder Woman 84 coming. Let them do their thing, man. Let them do their thing and just be patient. And let's see what they got, what they're rolling out here. All right, Tony Strauss writes, once upon a time, for the first 2.5 hours, all I could think was, this movie is super slow burn. Yeah, I get that. Then the last 15 minutes happens, and it may be the best 15 minutes of a film I've ever seen. Again, I'm not going to go into any details. Actually, it was a little bit more than 15. It might have been 20 plus minutes. Yeah, I mean, look, again, the car scenes, that stuff, I'm not going to go in particulars or to specifics, but yeah, I could see why you'd find it slow. I do. It was longer than it needed to be. I still found, though, it was a very enjoyable film filled with magical moments, at least a dozen great moments I'm going to be able to talk about with friends for a long time to come. So anyway, but I can totally see where you're coming from on that, Troy. All right, next up. Where are we at here? Roman Stewart writes, I'm with you, John. I love the new Lion King, except Beyonce's new song. Absolutely not needed and a complete cringe moment for me. Also, Jim Hopper is alive. Well, yeah, I mean, that, I think to me, look, as much as I love the new Lion King, it's not the perfection of the 1994 original animated film. And I don't think everything about the movie's perfect. But I think, and I said this before, Roman, yeah, I think my least favorite part of that movie was the new Beyonce song. Not that I'm opposed to a new song, because Aladdin had a new song in it, and I thought the new song was great. But I didn't think the Beyonce song that they put in for this one worked. It didn't work. It was unnecessary. There was no purpose for it being there. In Aladdin, the new song had a purpose, and they used it, and it had an effect. In this one, not so much. And I think that's my least favorite thing about this Lion King movie, to be honest with you. Yellow Does It writes, I like Man of Steel. I'm good on more Superman, though. Oh, yeah, I mean, I'd love more Superman. You and me both, brother. I would love more Superman. I totally would. Superman Steve writes, John, you are just teasing us all with that. With what? Crap. Maybe it was about something I said earlier and I can't remember. Sorry about that, Superman Steve. Mr. 47 writes, how much better could a Snyder cut of Justice League be when that's what Batman vs. Superman was? And nobody loved that film. But it has the best live action bat fight ever. Oh, I love the Batman vs. Superman fight. Love that fight, man. And, you know, when he storms the warehouse, love that fight too. I mean, there's a bunch, but that is something that I always wonder when people say, oh, the Snyder cut of talking about Justice League would have been so much better. It's like, but there was a Snyder cut and it was called Batman versus Superman and not everybody loved it. And that's just the reality. That doesn't mean anything though. I mean, that doesn't mean a Snyder cut wouldn't have been better. I don't think it would have been better, but it certainly doesn't prove that a Snyder cut wouldn't have been better for sure. But that is something that keeps coming to my head. It's like, well, he made other films. He made Man of Steel, and people didn't like it, except frickin' me. He made the other ones, and on whole, people didn't like it. So, yeah, I don't know why there's that kind of logic, mister. I agree. Captain Confidence Entertainment writes, you have a bad day. What movies cheer you up? Zoolander cheers me up. Galaxy Quest cheers me up. 40-Year-Old Virgin cheers me up. Those aren't my all-time favorite movies, but those are movies that seem to, almost regardless of the circumstances, are able to put a smile on my face, and that's always nice. All right, Mr. 47 writes, by the way, I have an idea of an easy movie commentary video. You do it by yourself and then misplace your wallet only to find it near the end of the film. So it's just 2 hours of me rummaging through my couch without actually saying anything. And that would get 1 million views, my friend. That would get 1 million views. Thank you for the suggestion. All right. Ryan Lohner writes, twist ending for Cats. They're actually flirkins. I like it. I like it. I mean, there is an alien. If you don't know anything about Cats, there's an alien element to Cats. Wouldn't that be like the biggest twist ever? The cats are flirkins. Love it. I never even thought of that, Ryan. James Welsh writes, have you seen the Jojo Rabbit trailer? Yes, we talked about it on the show the other day. Not what I was expecting, but really delightful. And again, what I said before was, I didn't know how are you going to portray Hitler in a funny way without undermining the fact that he was a pure demonic being. And somehow, some way, Taika Waititi found a way to do it, and I thought the trailer was really delightful. Not at all what I was expecting. Laugh Warehouse writes, you think there will be Touchstone movies on Disney Plus? Probably not. Disney Plus seems to be more of a place for more family-friendly stuff. I have a feeling Touchstone stuff will probably end up on Hulu. So that's my guess. Don't know that for sure, but that's my guess. Mr. 47 writes, did you know in Korea there's private rooms where you can rent a DVD and watch it? Some even have porn or provide condoms for Netflix and chill. Dude, I've had some friends who've traveled to various Asian countries like Korea and Japan. What some people might call weird, others might call awesome. But I'm never surprised at this point anymore to find out some of the stuff that they got going on in those countries, man. They definitely have a different way of looking at stuff than that, and that's not a bad thing. All right, Samuel May writes, where are we at here? Hello, John. If you had the Infinity Gauntlet and could make any bad film great, would you? If so, which film? I'd make Dark Phoenix great. If I had the Gauntlet, I could take a movie that was horrible and make it great. Probably Phantom Menace. Probably Phantom Menace. That's the one I would probably, if I had the Gauntlet and I could take one movie that I really, really don't like, that was really important to me to like it, I would probably go Phantom Menace. Because it was really important to me to like that film, and I really, really don't like the movie at all. So that's probably the one I would snap my fingers and go, be awesome! That's probably what I would do. Taki75 writes, didn't like Far From Home. Peter's supposed to be socially awkward, not a whiny klutz, and the Iron Man Jr. stuff has become really grating. Well, listen, Taki, you know my opinion on the Iron Man Jr. stuff. I don't like the Iron Man Jr. angle. That doesn't mean I don't like the relationship between Peter and Tony. I do. But I think you can do that without turning Peter into just a mini Iron Man and calling him Spider-Man. I don't think you need to do that. But I thought the film was delightful. And I didn't find Peter to be a whiny klutz. He was a high school kid. He was a socially awkward high school kid. I didn't find anything klutzy about him at all. I think they just portrayed him as a high school kid. Let's not forget that. With some of the decisions Peter makes and all that kind of stuff, that's consistent with what a young, immature high school kid would do, and he's doing the best he can as a high school kid. So, but hey man, all film is subjective. If you watched it and it didn't work for you, then it didn't work for you. But I gotta disagree with you because I still thought the film was pretty delightful, even though I had some issues with it. All right, Roke22 writes, I think we'll get news on Deadpool or Ryan Reynolds making an appearance at D23. I hope so. I don't know if they're ready for that yet, though. I mean, if they're going to announce it anywhere, it would be at D23 and not at a Marvel panel. It would be at D23. But I don't know if they're ready to do it yet. But I'll tell you what, though. Other than maybe a new trailer for Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, bringing out Ryan Reynolds and announcing an upcoming Deadpool movie, Deadpool 3, that would probably steal the show. The only thing that I think could beat it is the announcement of new Avengers or the playing of a new Star Wars trailer, which I do think we're going to get a new Star Wars trailer. But other than that, it would be one of the biggest pops they'd ever get. So I hope they do. I certainly hope they do. Collins E. writes, just saw Art of Self-Defense, one of my favorites of the year. I am constantly, Collins, this whole week, I'm getting people writing in. I still haven't had a chance to go and see it. I'm constantly getting people dropping in notes saying, loved Art of Self-Defense. People are loving it. People are saying it's their favorite film of the year. People are saying it's their favorite comedy film of the year. People like you, Collins, are saying it's one of your favorite films of the year for this little film. And again, I told the story before, but I started getting press invites like 6 months ago to go see screenings of this. And I never bothered because I don't go to most press screenings anyway, but I never bothered, but I'm hearing nothing but fabulous things about this movie, and I got to keep my eye on it. Jesse Eisenberg is in that one, for those of you who don't know. Krypton Caged writes, holy crap, John, it was an epic moment yesterday when you guys were discussing The Boys. The odds that both of them would surprise you like that are insane. One of the best moments on the show. So yesterday we were talking about the new Amazon series, The Boys, and Chris revealed that she had already seen the pilot episode like months ago. And then Erin revealed that she was actually in running for one of the roles, that she had auditioned for the role, was in running for one of the roles. I'm like, oh, look, it was a really great moment, Krypton. That was really cool to hear. I love it when I get double surprised like that. Jack Leo writes, the farewell blew me away. Awkwafina is incredible. Again, much like The Art of Self-Defense, Farewell is a film I'm hearing from a lot of people saying is great. And it clearly doesn't look like a film that would have a lot of commercial success. But it's one that I definitely got to see, and especially after Crazy Rich Asians, I'm totally down to see what Awkwafina can do in something else. I didn't love Awkwafina in Ocean's 8. I thought she was fine, but didn't really stand out to me at all. But I loved her in Crazy Rich Asians. She was one of the big standout things. I'm very curious to see this movie as well. Ryan Lohner writes, The Boys has a bunch of extra jokes using Amazon's X-ray feature. Make sure you keep checking it. It's good to know. Like I said, I'm planning on using a lot of my day today, Ryan, just to watch The Boys. Joe Clem 15 writes, so then what's Scar's real name? I know, I've always wondered about that. I mean, he's called Scar because he's got a big scar, but he wasn't born with a big scar. So what's his name? Joe, you and I are wondering the same mysteries of the universe. The Halo Brony writes, I had a personal realization. What was that? Tom's Spider-Man is how I imagine Spider-Man to be. Toby's Spider-Man is how I imagine myself being Spider-Man. Your thoughts? Huh. I don't know. See, all three guys who have played Spider-Man, Toby, Andrew, and now Tom, I think they've each given a really good interpretation of Peter Parker in their own way. I don't think any of them have given the perfect iteration of Peter Parker, but I think all three of them in their own unique ways have given really fun, enjoyable iterations of Peter Parker. I think Tom's might be becoming my favorite, but I really love Toby's and I really love Andrew Garfield's, even though The Amazing Spider-Man 2 wasn't all that great. I still loved his iteration of Spider-Man. I really did. So that's an interesting way of looking at Halo Brony. It's a really interesting way of looking at it. Bohemian Biscuit writes, John, do you prefer Lion King 2019 and Man of Steel over Blade Runner? Yes. Yeah, I know that's not the cool thing to say. But yes, I've always said, I actually am one of the few people in the world that I don't like Blade Runner. I'm one of the only people on the planet. And hey, if I was smart, I would just lie, because I know the popular thing is to say that Blade Runner is fantastic. But all I've got with you guys is my honest opinion. Even if that is the uncool thing to say. I've never liked Blade Runner. I really do like Blade Runner 2049, but I never liked the original Blade Runner, even though I acknowledge it's one of the all-time classics. It's revered. It's one of the most influential sci-fi films of all time. But yeah, and I love Lion King and I love Man of Steel. So yes, I prefer Lion King and Man of Steel over Blade Runner. A lot of you guys will disagree, and I respect that. But that is my honest opinion on that. All right. Imran Islam writes, if Walter Hamada wanted to, would he be able to bring back Henry Cavill, or is that a call only Warner Brothers will be able to make? Hashtag justice for Cavill. No, it's Walter Hamada's decision, because Walter Hamada is Warner Brothers. He is Warner Brothers' representative in this situation. He's the guy Warner Brothers charged with looking after their interests in developing a DCEU. So yes, at the end of the day, now look, if somebody over Walter Hamada wanted to veto him, I suppose they could do that, but it is his decision. Just like if Kevin Feige wanted Jon Favreau to direct Iron Man 4, that's Kevin Feige's decision. He represents Marvel, and as a result, he represents the interests of Disney. But, I mean, Bob Iger could step in if he wanted to and said, no, Kevin Feige, you may not use Jon Favreau. I mean, I guess he could, but Kevin Feige is his guy. Bob Iger put Kevin Feige in that position specifically so he could make those decisions on behalf of the company, right? So Walter Hamada is the guy Warner Brothers has in that position to make those decisions on behalf of Warner Brothers. So in this particular situation, Imran, Warner Brothers is Walter Hamada. Walter Hamada is Warner Brothers. You see what I'm saying there? So that's kind of the way to look for it. Okay. David Tapia writes, my favorite musical, Boz's Moulin Rouge, I love Moulin Rouge, one of my top 20 all-time favorite films, has just opened on Broadway musical stage version, and I'm so tempted to fly to New York to see it. Would you? No, I wouldn't be tempted to fly to New York to see it, but if it was playing in LA and I could just drive over and watch it, I would be tempted to go see that. Now, a live stage production is not the movie. I understand that, but I would be curious because I love Moulin Rouge. Nicole Kidman, Ewan McGregor. Guys, if you have not seen Moulin Rouge, it's so phonetic and it's so and kinetic. It's just this wild energy and color and sound. It's a magnificent movie, and you'll be crying like a baby near the end of it. Shama writes, MCU films released by Fox under Marvel Max label, irrelevant. The fact of the matter is, the only thing that matters is, are they going to be in the MCU or not? And I think they've made it pretty clear they're not. So it's really irrelevant what the name of whatever banner they create is irrelevant. So I have no idea. I don't think Fox would make something called a Marvel Max label. If it's under Fox, it'll be under Fox. They'll just release it under the Fox label. Anything's possible, but ultimately the name of the label isn't important. The only thing that's important is it in the MCU or outside of the MCU? And it looks like those are going to be outside the MCU, but you never know. There's always a possibility. The Grixer73 writes, over under 30% Loki will be the villain in Thor 4 under. Now, I would take over that he will be in Thor 4. Maybe not 60%, maybe not 70%, but I would take over 30 that Loki will be in Thor 4. But the villain, no, I think there's a very small chance of that. I think they've been changing his character, so pretty small chance of that. Coolsome XD writes, everyone's joking about new Rocky, but Howard's passing reminds us we don't know when we will go, so we may as well make it before it really is too late. But see, here's the thing though, Coolsome XD. People aren't saying Stallone shouldn't make another movie. I think the people who are raising their eyebrow at the story that we talked about the other day, that Stallone was going to make a new Rocky, it's the fact that he's making a new Rocky that's raising people's eyebrows. People aren't saying, oh, Stallone shouldn't make another movie. And yeah, he should make movies while he can. He's still in terrific shape. He's got all of his health right now. He's totally active. Make movies while you can. That's not what people are questioning. People are just questioning whether the Rocky movie, another Rocky film, is the right thing to do right now. So that's where I think the discussion comes in. Jesse Lopez writes, What's sad about the Flash film situation is that Iris West was casted in Justice League and her scenes were cut. At this rate, who knows if we'll eventually see her or not. Oh, I think it's a pretty good... I'm guessing we're not going to see her at all. Really. Now, the fact that her scenes were cut out of Justice League, by the way, I don't know if that's 100% true. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm saying I don't know off the top of my head if that's 100% true. But even if it was, she clearly had a very, very tiny role. So it was probably just more of an appearance, you know? But yeah, I mean, I don't know if her iteration of Iris West would have been the best thing ever. I don't know if it would have been bad. So I really have no emotional attachment to it. As a fan, one way or the other, I have no attachment to whether or not she's Iris West or not, because I have neither any positive nor negative feelings about it. So I'm kind of, agnostic on that whole thing myself. But, and listen, Jesse, by the way, I'm wondering seriously if we're even going to get a Flash movie, period. I'm just sitting here wondering if we're even going to get a Flash movie, period. But it makes sense, writes. Holy shit, The Boys is awesome. So much gory fun. I have not watched it yet. I'm planning on spending my entire day today just watching The Boys. The trailer's been amazing. I cannot wait to watch it. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. Makes sense. Superman Steve writes, John, how can I get that thumbnail for wallpaper? Oh, if you're talking about the thumbnail that Ray made, he did a good job on that. I think just look on YouTube. I think there are YouTube services that will allow you to just download a YouTube's thumbnail. I'm pretty sure there are YouTube services that will allow you to download a thumbnail, and this should be, an HD. This is 1020 by 1080 or 1920 by 1080. So, I mean, so it should work for you. Just try that out, Superman Steve. R Squared Games writes, I'm okay with the MCU multiverse if it's limited to Doctor Strange movies or used to tell Elseworld stories like Joker and not used as a retcon tool. And we've already seen them starting to use it as a retcon tool. Mjolnir is somehow coming back. Gamora is now running around. Loki is now running around. And again, I know there's some people who go, John, no, you see, there's a difference between the multiverse of Earth 615B and the time travel paradox that happens when the I get that, but it's all semantics. It's all multiverse. I mean, it's all, whichever way semantically you want to describe it, it's still multiverse. And we're seeing them use multiverse stuff, alternate timelines, alternate realities, this, that, and the other thing to retcon tons of stuff. Gamora is now back. Loki is now back. Apparently in Thor 4, Mjolnir is now back. On and on and on. Somehow Vision's coming back. It's curious to know how that's going to happen, but Vision's coming back. And that might be a technology thing. That might not be a multiverse thing. But I guess I'd be with you in the sense that if you had multiverse, but it was contained to one character, and that one character's job is to keep the door shut on multiverse stuff, I think I could get on board with that, R Squared. I think I agree with you. I think I could get on board with that as long as it didn't become a lazy man's tool to retcon everything and have no consequences for anything, which is how they're using it so far, and I don't like that. Still love the overall MCU, still love it, but I don't like this particular thing. But limiting it to one character whose job it is, like maybe Doctor Strange, to keep a lid on the multiverse, and maybe his individual movies have to do with him in the multiverse, I think I could be okay with that. I could be convinced of that. I think I would allow it. All right. Dirk Diggler writes, please explain to me why Walter Hamada and Warner Brothers cannot at least give a worthy public statement to give us hope that there will be a Superman film in the future. Don't get me wrong, I really do want to see a Supergirl movie, but I am effing furious, and I think I am not alone on this, that Warner Brothers and Hamada cannot do something to get Superman sequel launched. Well, here's the thing, Dirk. No studio does or should make public statements about movies they're not making. No studio does. We don't see studios, we don't see Warner Brothers coming out and saying, ladies and gentlemen, some of you might be wondering about Hangover 4. And why haven't we done Hangover 4? Well, here's our public statement as to why we're not doing Hangover 4. They don't do that. No studio does it, nor should they. Warner Brothers has made a statement. We have no immediate plans for a Superman character. And you don't have to look much further. Look, I love Man of Steel. I am a bigger Man of Steel fan than you. I don't know you, but I'm just saying, from my perspective, I'm a bigger Man of Steel fan than anybody out there. With maybe the exception of Henry Cavill's mama. Maybe that's one exception. But there's nobody out there who will jump to the defense and argue for the merits of Man of Steel more than I will. Again, that might be a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. But the reality is, even though I loved it, a lot of people did not. A lot of people didn't. A lot of critics didn't. A lot of the fans didn't. To this day, I continue to get social media messages from morons who are like, you like Man of Steel? You have no credibility if you like that Man of Steel. Okay, whatever, loser. And it's fine if you don't like the movie, but, the fact that I loved it doesn't change the fact that a lot of people didn't. And the fact that I love Henry Cavill and his iteration of Superman in Batman vs. Superman doesn't change the fact that a lot of people didn't. And just because I loved the Superman iteration in Justice League doesn't change the fact that a lot of people didn't. Why won't Walter Hamada come out and make a statement about Superman? Because I think they're in a position right now when, while I don't like it, I understand it, where they're like, we got to put Superman on the shelf for a bit. Again, I want to see a new Superman movie tomorrow with Henry Cavill in the role. That's what I want. But I also can see where Warner Brothers is coming from, that, look, we put out several movies with this iteration of Superman. We have not once gotten wide audience approval on it. It's time we put it on the back burner for a bit and then maybe take another shot at it later. Whether that's what you and I want or not, I think what we have to acknowledge is that kind of makes sense from their point of view. From their point of view, that kind of makes sense. Look, we've said this before. The definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over and over again while expecting different results. Continuing to do the same thing, but expecting different results. That's kind of the definition of insanity. And Warner Brothers themselves may be in a position right now where they're like, do we just keep doing Henry Cavill Superman movies, even though wasn't beloved by the fans there, and it wasn't beloved by the fans there, and it wasn't beloved by the fans there? Should we just keep doing it and hope the results change? Again, if it were up to you and me, we would be greenlighting this effing movie tomorrow, buddy. We'd be greenlighting this movie tomorrow. But if I try to be objective about it and just take a step back and look at it from their point of view, I can understand why they're approaching it right now the way they are. And that's why I don't think we're going to see Henry Cavill again, although, God, I hope we do. And why I think when we do see Superman again, it'll probably be a rebooted iteration of him. So, again, we'll have to wait and find out. But, again, I don't think that Walter Hamada or Warner Brothers or anybody are beholden to put out a public statement about the status of Superman until there's something to put out an announcement for. Until then, they shouldn't say anything, to be honest with you. Until they have something material to announce, they should just stay quiet on it. And despite the fact how you and I feel about it, I think they're just staying quiet on it, and that's what they should do. Anyway, incredible topic, man. Incredible topic. TNS93 writes, late for work, but I got you. Keep up the good work. Thank you so much, TNS, and I hope you get to work on time, buddy. Don't get fired. Dirk Diggler writes, I am this mad at Warner Brothers largely. Well, look, Warner Brothers is doing some great things. They are. And let's be honest, let's not lose sight of the fact that they seem to be righting their ship. They had their first billion-dollar film ever with Aquaman, which was pretty enjoyable. They put out one of their best films in their universe yet with Shazam. We got Wonder Woman 84 coming with Patty Jenkins back to direct. We know what caliber of a director she is. So I get being mad, but they seem to be righting the ship. They seem to be on a good path right now. And I'll be honest with you, I'm excited for where they're going. That doesn't mean it's going to be good. It doesn't mean that. But I'm excited to see where Warner Brothers is going with their DC Universe right now, with Walter Hamada at the helm. They're on a winning streak right now. Let's see if they can keep that winning streak going. Michael Morgan writes, it's my birthday along with Sandra Bullock, Jason Statham, and Kate Beckinsale. That's nice. I am planning to have an awesome time watching my favorite movies with my dad. Well, first of all, Michael, happy birthday to you, sir. I hope you had a wonderful year. But here's a raise of the glass to you, Michael, happy birthday, sir, and may your year ahead be a wonderful and one in which you live long and prosper, my friend, and enjoy watching movies and hanging out and watching with your dad. I love it when I get to watch a movie with my parents. It doesn't happen often, but I love it when I get the chance to do that. All right. In Cascuba History writes, I'm sure I'm not reading that right. Greetings, Giovanni. Greetings. You are an extraordinary individual with profound knowledge. I'm a film fan, dude. I'm just a film fan. And professionalism. What is your absolute favorite film of all time? Oh, that's easy. Star Wars. Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars. Star Wars role-playing game. Star Wars. Lots of Star Wars stuff. It's Star Wars. Star Wars. That doesn't mean I love everything about Star Wars. There are things about Star Wars I don't like. But overall, Star Wars, the original trilogy, favorite film of all time, will never be replaced. At least if it is, it'll be pretty awesome if it was. But has been since my childhood, man. Has been and continues to be. MZod780 writes, one of two. John, I know how much you love Transformers the movie. Do you mean the first live action one or the animated one? But it is one of my absolute favorite. Okay, you're talking about the animated one. It's one of my absolute favorite animated movies. It introduced me to Transformers back home. Two of two. Back home, this was released as a set of 3-part movie. Part 1, Coming to Earth. Part 2, Death of Optimus Prime. Part 3, Return of Optimus Prime. Yeah, brother, MZod, my friend, I wish I could agree with you on this. I really do, brother. I do not like that Transformers animated movie. And I have had a mad-on for that movie ever since the first day I saw it. Because to me, it was Hasbro. Now understand this. My household, I'm just being purely transparent here. My household is on Hasbro's payroll. All right? Half of my household income is provided by Hasbro because my wife is a senior person over at Hasbro. So if there's anybody sending money into the Campea bank accounts, if there's any entertainment company, only 2 entertainment companies in history have actually directly paid money to me. One is Lionsgate, because I used to work for the network and I used to run the shows for that network. And 2 is Hasbro, and they currently provide half my household income. So understand this, that my house is on Hasbro's payroll. Let's just be clear about that. Fuck Hasbro and what they did with that Transformers movie. I remember as a kid watching that Transformers movie and saying, what the fuck is going on? It's like, I wanted a Transformers movie. To me, Transformers is, Prowl and Sideswipe and Ratchet and Optimus Prime and, Ramjet and Thrust and, that's, Brawn and Mirage, and that's Transformers to me. That's what the Transformers are. So I'm like, yay, a Transformers movie. Okay, hit play. Optimus Prime, dead. Blue Streak, dead. Sunswiper, dead. Hound, dead. Mirage, dead. Every Ironside, dead. Wheeljack, dead. On and on and on and on. And they just did, in the first 10 minutes of the movie, they killed everybody. And the only reason they did it was that they should go, hey kiddies, you love our Transformers movies? Well, F you, we're killing them all. Oh, you gonna cry about it? Well, listen, now you gotta come out and buy, here's all our new Transformers movies. Look, everybody, you're gonna love Cup. Who the fuck is Cup? Never mind about it, you're gonna love him. Look, everybody, it's, Rodimus Prime. What the fuck is a Rodimus Prime? Never mind about it. You're going to love him. It's Judd Nelson. You're going to dig him. And look, guys, Ultra Magnus. It's a Optimus Prime ripoff. Nah, you're going to love Ultra Magnus. And they just spent the whole effing thing killing all the characters we loved, all of them, in the first 5-10 minutes of the movie. So they could, it was all, the whole reason they made that movie was to tell kids, F you for your loyalty and your love of our brand. We're going to kill off all the characters you love so you can start buying some more toys, you little brats. Buy more toys. Here's all the new toys. You're not cool unless you have the new toys. Eventually, they realized that backfired, and they had to bring Optimus Prime back. And I'm glad they did. And by the way, it was a great episode when they brought Optimus Prime back. Didn't make any sense, but it was great when they did it. But Yeah, man. So, brother, I wish I could be with you on the love of the original movie, but I'm still, to this day, so angry. And I remember it wasn't long after that I sold off or gave away or just threw out a bunch of my Transformers that I wish to God I still had. But, I had a lot of Transformers, man. And it's just like, yeah. Anyway. All right, Jesse. Hi, Hasbro. Thank you for providing half of my household income, Hasbro. Anyway, Jesse Lopez writes, I've long wanted to see Superman take on Lex Luthor in his power suit in a live action film. Not sure if we're going to see that, though. Even Jesse Eisenberg is not sure about his character's future. Well, listen, to be clear, though, keep this in mind, Jesse, that just because Jesse Eisenberg may or may not be back doesn't mean they're not going to keep using Lex Luthor. I'm not saying they are doing Lex Luthor. I'm just saying that just because Jesse Eisenberg may not be back, that doesn't mean we're not going to see Lex Luthor. Ben Affleck's not coming back, but that doesn't mean we're not getting Batman. It's now Robert Pattinson. So they could bring in Lex Luthor again later, being played by a new character, and they could give him his, super Iron Man suit. You could do that. I don't know if that's the right thing to do, but it is a possibility. Whether or not Jesse Eisenberg comes back, it doesn't mean that Lex Luthor as a character is off the books for them. If they want to use him, they can still use him and just reboot that character, bring in a new actor to play it, or bring back Jesse. Bring back Jesse, if that's what they want to do. We'll keep our eyes on that. All right, let's see here. Willow Yang writes, Lena Headey was phenomenal as Cersei. She was. She absolutely was. But I'm so curious to know what Aaron's take would have been. Yeah, I never knew, for those of you who missed yesterday's show, I had no idea that Aaron was up for the role of Cersei Lannister. I had no idea of that. And she mentioned that yesterday. She was in the running to play Cersei on Game of Thrones. Man, her life would have been different. But hey, she goes, you go out for lots of roles all the time that you don't get. But man, that would have been so cool if she had played that. But you're right. Lena Headey was marvelous. Absolutely marvelous in it. Ryan Lohner writes, so does the whole new 007 thing kill the theory that James Bond itself is a code name? I never liked it anyway. I've heard that theory. Look, I'll be honest with you. I like the James Bond movies. I am not a James Bond theologian, I am not a renowned expert on Bond. So I've never personally bought into the idea that James was a code name. Like, wasn't one of the more recent movies, like when he's talking to Blofeld, wasn't like James his name since childhood? Didn't they specifically say in that movie that his name was James since childhood? Maybe I'm wrong about that. Again, I'm not going to pretend to be fully versed in all the Bond movies. I enjoy the Bond movies. I like the Bond movies. I'm looking forward to the new Bond movie, but I never really, I thought that was dispelled a while ago, but maybe I'm wrong about that. Thanks for bringing it up, Ryan. All right. Kevin Brown writes, for Blade, how would you feel if it's not vampires Blade hunts down and fights? What if it's another vampire-like creature relevant to the MCU? Skrulls? Well, first of all, Skrulls have already kind of been portrayed as good guys, so I don't know why Blade would be hunting down Skrulls. One of the whole points of Captain Marvel is we find out that the Skrulls are just a peace-loving people. And they're not the villains of the story like they are portrayed in the comic books. Comic books and movies are two different things. I mentioned this before, Kevin, and I'll say it again here. I'm okay with the notion of them, say, doing something different other than vampires. The tricky part comes with, but Blade himself is supposed to be part vampire. So are you going to take that part of the character out and not say that Blade is a vampire and rather just say Blade is just a straight up mutant like the X-Men? You have to play around with his mythology a bit. And I don't think they should. I think they should keep him as a half vampire. That's what makes him unique in the universe. So I'm still okay if they go away from vampires, but if you're going to say that he himself is part vampire, then why not use vampires? But to answer your question, Kevin, I'm not going to raise a stink about it as a fan. If they say he doesn't hunt vampires, he hunts something else, that's fine. I just don't see any reason to do that if you're going to acknowledge the vampire part of his biology. That's just where I'm at right now. It's going to be really interesting, though, dude, to see where they go with this. All right. Mike Thompson writes, if Far From Home eclipses Skyfall's box office, Feige will have produced the highest grossing films in the history of two studios back to back. It's true. It's got the highest, well, not just the highest grossing film in Disney's history, he's got the highest grossing film of all time with Avengers Endgame. And if, as I suspect, Spider-Man Far From Home does beat out Skyfall, Kevin Feige will be a producer of record of 2 different studios' biggest box office successes in their studios' histories. That's something you put on a plaque and hang on your wall. Absolutely, Mike. All right, Mike follows up with, also, Man of Steel made almost double what Shazam did, yet Shazam gets a sequel and Superman doesn't. Again, it's not just about box office. It's about how do people respond to it. You know? That's great that Man of Steel made what it made, and it was by no means a flop at all. But it clearly didn't make what it could have. But it's about, but did the audience like it? And a lot of the audience didn't. And did the critics like it? And a lot of the critics didn't. Whereas Shazam, it has a massive audience support and a massive critical support. The critics love Shazam. So that gives you something to build on. And that gives you something to move forward with. And that is what tells them if we make another Shazam, it will make more money. That's not guaranteed, clearly. But it gives you some confidence that if we make another Shazam, it will make even more than this one did, because the people who saw it are buzzing about it. They liked it. The critics loved it. All that kind of stuff. We'll parlay that into another one. So just because something makes a lot of money doesn't mean it automatically gets a sequel. And just because something doesn't make a world of money doesn't mean it won't get a sequel. And in this situation, I can kind of understand it. Anyway, Samuel C. 137 writes, this Regal plan is way worse than I thought it would be. Even for Regal, 50-cent surcharge for every ticket you book with it says deadline. A-list is still the best. Yeah, look, again, I agree that A-list is the better plan. I still completely agree that A-list is the better plan. But let's not then turn that and say, well, if you're not as good as A-list, then your plan sucks. Not at all. This is a great deal. If you're somebody who goes to 3 movies a month or more, this Regal plan is still a great deal. It's a great deal. Maybe it's not as good as A-lists. Fine. It's still a great deal. If you go to 2 or 3 movies a month, or 4 movies a month, or 5 movies a month, and you live near a Regal theater, having your membership to Regal Unlimited, but it's not unlimited, semantics. Even if all you can get is that, you will benefit from this program. You're going to save money with this program. How is that not a good thing? Now, I get it. We as consumers want everything for nothing. That's what we want. We want unlimited movies for 30 cents a month and throw in 5 free popcorns and 2 free sodas and a dedicated parking spot for 30 cents a month. That's what we want. And I get it. That's what we as consumers do. We want the most that we can get. But dude, just because this isn't as good as the A-list program doesn't mean it's not good. It's good. Just because Once Upon a Time in Hollywood isn't as good as, I don't know, Django Unchained, doesn't mean it's not still good. Doesn't mean it's not still a really good movie. I still think that this program is good. Have they made it a little convoluted? Yes. Should they have simplified instead of putting in all these surcharges? Yes. But still, bottom line is, if you do the math and you get this card and you go to a couple movies a month, congratulations, man, you're saving money. I'll just be happy that I live right beside an AMC theater and I can still use A-list, though. All right, Sid Vicious writes, wow, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was boring beyond belief. No story, just scenes with references to stuff Tarantino liked from the 60s or his childhood. Again, I can't refute you on that. I mean, I don't agree that it was overall boring, but I can't refute you. It was just a love letter from Tarantino to the Hollywood he loved. It was. It was just a collection of scenes. I agree. But for me, those collections of scenes and those magic moments were still enough to make it really enjoyable for me. One of my favorite Tarantino movies? No. But I still thought a very enjoyable time at the theater. Do I have issues with it? Yes. It's too long, the driving stuff, no discernible plot, blah, blah, blah. I have all those issues, but I still think overall, if I'm going to be honest, when I walked out of the theater, I was like, that was a good time. I had a good time with that. That was good to watch. That was good to watch. As much as when I walked out of, Pulp Fiction, no. As much as when I walked out of Django Unchained? No. Fine, but it's still really good. I still thought it was pretty good, but you know what? All film's subjective. The things that bothered me about the film clearly bothered you even more. And the things I liked about the film weren't as magical for you, and that's totally cool. And I'm sorry you didn't have a better time, Sid. I'm sorry you didn't have a better time. All I can say is that I enjoyed it. All right, Zombitron5678 writes, to be honest, I hate waiting week to week to see a show. Me too. I'm a binger, and that's why I have Netflix. Am I a minority? I love watching it all in one go. Again, Zombitron, I agree. I'm like you. But just because that's what I prefer doesn't necessarily mean it's the smart thing for Netflix to do. Because I'm with you, man. Like today, I'm going to binge the hell out of The Boys as long as I don't hate the first few episodes. But as long as I like it, I'm going to binge The Boys today because that's how I like watching it. But just because that's what I like doesn't mean it's necessarily the smart thing, and I think sometimes those are two different things. And that's why I think it's probably the smart thing for Netflix to go to a week-to-week thing, because I think it's going to make their shows more popular. But I agree. I like watching it in a binge sense. All right, Jake Smith writes, got the chance to see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood last night. It's a very enjoyable film, in my opinion. Your guys' thoughts? Well, obviously, I've already gone quite in depth, Jake, as much as I can. And again, let me mention again that on Sunday late afternoon, we'll do an open spoiler discussion for those of you who do see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, so we can talk about all those scenes that I can't mention. So we can talk about some of their spoilers that I can't mention. So we can talk about that ending that we can't mention. We're going to do that on Sunday afternoon, so come on back and join us at that point. All right, Gavin Downard writes, I think the MCU already subtly introduced vampires. In Thor Ragnarok, Korg mentions vampires when talking to Thor and Sakaar. I don't think that was introducing vampires. You hear people in lots of shows reference vampires, but that doesn't mean vampires are actually in that world, right? So just because Korg says vampires, that doesn't mean there are real, literal vampires, right? You can be watching Breaking Bad, and if some point, they mention, you're like a blood-sucking vampire. They just confirmed that vampires are in the Breaking Bad universe. No. It was a reference. It doesn't necessarily mean they were really there. Now, that doesn't mean they're not really there. I mean, it could, but I would just say that Korg making that reference does not definitively tell us that vampires are actually in the MCU at that point. I think it was just a reference just like anything else. But I do think we are getting vampires in the MCU. George Almighty just sends in a super chat. Thank you, George. Appreciate that, man. Tochi Victor writes, any chance we would see Emperor Zurg again? Cameo? Well, considering that I don't think we're going to get another Toy Story again, it's going to be hard to bring back Emperor Zurg. I mean, that changes if at some point Pixar announces that they are going to do another Toy Story film. Yeah, then maybe a Zurg cameo could become a possibility. But as things stand, I don't even know that they're making another one at all. So that kind of limits the chances that we'll see Zurg again. Sid Vicious writes, I think Once Upon a Time resonates more with people in LA who drove through those streets and restaurants and close to celebrity culture like many critics. Oh, I don't disagree with you, Sid. It was a little, I use the phrase masturbatory. It was a little masturbatory. They spend so much unneeded time of this movie. Look, everybody, it's Hollywood in 1969 as the car drives by endlessly. Again, it was a little bit of Quentin Tarantino's masturbatory reference to his love of the 1969 Hollywood scene. And I respect that. I do. But I think I agree with you. I think all that stuff in that movie will mean more to people who live in LA. Or have lived in LA. I don't think you're wrong about that. I think those elements will mean more to people who lived in LA. I think there's a lot of elements in this film that will appeal to everybody, but those scenes in particular, I think you're right about that, Sid. All right, Javier Rios 405 writes, did you ever get to see the Ted Bundy movie with Zac Efron? I did finally get around to watching it. I'll be honest, I couldn't finish it. I didn't hate it. And if I had watched it in a movie theater, I wouldn't have walked out. But I just remember, I have better things to do right now, and I didn't finish it all the way through, to be honest with you. Rodney Alexander writes, hello, John and crew. Just wanted to say thank you for having an awesome show. Thank you so much, Rodney. I appreciate that. I graduate tomorrow. Congratulations, dude. That's awesome. I graduate tomorrow, and I can remember watching your show and my lady saying that's not homework My reply was, I'm on break right now. Thank you. Well, seriously, no. Well, first of all, Rodney, thank you. First of all, that's a really generous super chat, man. Thank you for sending that in. But thank you for watching the show and being along with us. But honestly, man, graduating is no small thing. That's no small thing. So seriously, dude, congratulations to you on that. Because that takes, not just you have to, I'm not saying you have to be brilliant, smart, but it takes work, man. To graduate takes work, and it takes dedication, and it takes determination, and you did it, and you got through, and you're graduating, whatever it is you're graduating in. So not everybody does it, man. Not everybody does it. So congratulations to you. That's a huge deal. Make sure you guys celebrate appropriately and have a good time. So thanks for that, Rodney. Congratulations again. Again, a raise of the glass to Rodney on his graduation. Congratulations, buddy. All right. Aditya writes, Once Upon in Hollywood was such a disappointment. Sad to see them disrespect Bruce Lee's legacy like that. Weakest Tarantino film yet. Again, there's some things you're bringing up I can't talk about. I can't talk about that, obviously, because I don't want to get into spoilers. We will talk about that on Sunday's open spoiler discussion. But yeah, it's one of those movies that I have issues with, but I liked it. And I can understand why people will like it more than I did, but I can also understand why people will like it less than I did. It is going to be one of those films. It's going to be one of those films. I still think overall was quite good, but yeah, they did a number of things in the movie that didn't work for me, that did not work for me. Rodney Alexander follows up and writes, Hello, John. When you go to conventions, do executives, actors, or others come up to you about things you say on your show about them? Case in point, Marvel and fake death. Has Marvel reached out to you and said, calm down, please? Nope. No studio ever. Not Disney, not Warner Brothers, not Paramount, not Sony, not Lionsgate. Nobody has ever reached out to me because they didn't like something I said. The only times, because that would be completely unprofessional, all the studios have acted very professionally that way. And they know that's my job, to give my opinion on things. The only time I have had studios reach out to me on something was when something happened that, quite honestly, I shouldn't have done. For example, there was a review embargo on a particular movie, and I got the literal day wrong. I thought it was one day at like 12 noon Pacific Standard Time. It was really the next day. And I posted my review one time. Jackass thing to do. Totally inadvertently, but something I need to be smarter about. And I released my review a day before it. And you're damn right. I think it was Sony. Sony got on the horn with me real quick and say, what the hell? You know there's a review embargo on this. I'm like, yeah, isn't the review embargo today? No. Look at the email again. I'm like, oh, damn, my bad. And I just quickly took it down. That's happened once or twice over my career. Or when the only other time that like Disney and another studio as well have reached out to me is when something I've posted was stolen or wrongfully, harshly leaked, and that really shouldn't be out there. And even then, it's only happened a couple of times, where I think it was Paramount one time and Disney on another time reached out to me and said, hey, listen, that is not supposed to be out there. And we request that you take that image down or whatever. That's happened with Paramount. It's happened with Disney. And that's totally understandable. But as far as my pure opinion on anything, like I was invited to the world premiere of City of a Thousand Planets. I can't remember the first name of the film. Why am I forgetting? Whatever. So-and-so, City of a Thousand Planets. I was invited to the premiere of that. I didn't like the movie. Did the studio write to me and complain that I said I didn't like it? No, because they know that's my job. You know, I went to the premiere of what's it called, Wrinkle in Time, and I said it's a bad movie. Did the studio write to me and complain that I'm saying it's a bad movie? No. You know, I hate, you know, what Paramount has done with the Transformers after the first Transformers movie. Has Paramount ever written to me to complain or asked me to tone it down? No, because they know that's my job and they're professional. And so, no, honestly, it's always been really good. Let me take it back. One time, I had a problem with a studio. And it really wasn't the studio's fault. It was an overly ambitious PR person's fault that was trying to strong arm me into doing a puff piece about something. And I declined doing it. They wrote, hey, we think your audience would love it if you wrote about this and did a story on this or did a video about this. And I just didn't do it. And then they wrote again, hey, I just want to follow up. John, we wrote you this. Considering the relationship between, AMC and our studio, we would think that you would like to do a video about this. And I'm just saying, I just don't think my viewers would like it. Then the dude actually called me and said, I would hate to have to go over your head. And at that, I lost it. And I remember Dennis was in the office at the time. And when this PR guy was writing to me, basically threatening me, I'm like, and I swear to God, I thought the glass was going to break. I was screaming so loud at this guy. I thought the glass was going to break. Are you effing this and effing that? And because that was unacceptable. Now that person isn't a PR person anymore, and it was a junior PR person, and clearly it wasn't the studio's fault. And that guy's not there anymore. But that's honestly, that out of all the years that I've done this, I've never had a single problem with any studio trying to unduly influence the positive or negative things I say about any movie. No studio's done it. Because it's the job, man. They understand that, so it's all been good. Anyway, good question though, Rodney. I'm Upset writes, in my opinion, Dora and Sonic films are about 15 years too late. Dude, you and me are on the same page with that. I really don't understand the logic of trying to do a Dora the Explorer movie now. I mean, let's put aside the fact that I think the trailers look terrible. I don't understand the logic behind it. At this point, if you're going to do a Dora movie or Sonic, should have happened like minimum 10 years ago. So I'm with you on that. But who knows? Maybe they'll be the greatest movies ever. Brandon Blake writes, can you confirm that Warner Brothers used FaceApp to remove Cavill's stash? It's a good theory. It's a good theory. Maybe they did, but I got a feeling FaceApp might have done a better job than they ultimately did on that. All right. Rodney Alexander writes, another big super chat. Thank you, Rodney. Writes, hey crew, I often find myself watching a movie and notice an actor I've never seen before, only to watch an older movie and see them in it. I did this with Superman / Immortals with Henry Cavill. Does this happen to any of you? Oh God, dude, this happens all the time. Where like an actor comes on my radar because of a significant movie they do, right? Now they're on my radar. And then maybe a couple of years later, I go back to watch an older film that I like and go, wait a minute, that actor was in that? And I didn't even realize it. Like one of a great example of that. And even though this is a really small little thing, I think this is a good example of that is like Seth Rogen started getting big and Seth Rogen was big and suddenly he's on everybody's radar. And then one day I go back to watch the original Anchorman and realize that Seth Rogen was an Anchorman. I'm like, wait a minute, what? Seth Rogen's an Anchorman? And I had totally forgotten. He was the cameraman, remember? It was a small part. It's not a big deal, but I just remember that's one of those types of situations, Rodney, that really stood out to me pretty hard and pretty much the most. All right. Moose Tack Reviews writes, thoughts on the return of Andy Signore? Again, as I said, I've commented on that. I'm going to comment on that. Either Audrey writes, one of two, weekly anime recommendations, genre, slice of life / comedy. Love Lab, student council president Maki, in order to protect her perfect image, practices romance theory in secret, but she is discovered by Rico and she forces her to keep quiet by making her join the student council and help with her love research. Dude, I have no idea what any of that means, but it sounds bonkers. I like the sound of it. And by the way, I'm not a big anime guy and everybody knows this, but I constantly get messages from people who say they appreciate either that you make these recommendations every week, because I may not be running out to watch a lot of anime, but there are a lot of people who are and really do appreciate you making these little recommendations. So that one sounds bonkers. I really do like the sounds of that one. That one sounds cool. Thanks again for your recommendation, Either. All right. The Maz writes, recently saw the Mulan trailer. Looks amazing. I thought the Mulan trailer looked great. I thought it looked really good. It looks epic in scope, and it looks like Disney might even be aiming for an Oscar for it. Will it be a great one, or will it be another Nutcracker in the Four Realms? We'll have to find out, but I do think, at least for the trailer, I thought the trailer was pretty good, but damn good. The Maz writes, I know you don't consider Die Hard a Christmas movie, but what about Gremlins or Trading Places? Been watching since AMC days and still love your content. Well, thank you so much for that, Maz. Yeah, I don't consider Die Hard a Christmas movie at all. It is a movie that takes place at Christmas time, but Christmas plays no fundamental part of the movie other than the circumstance. The circumstance is the party is a Christmas party, but the themes and the notion and the whole entity of Christmas plays no fundamental part of what the movie is. Therefore, I don't consider it a Christmas movie. Gremlins, you might be able to make an argument because remember, there's, if for no other reason, everything's happening at Christmas time. And remember, one of the female lead, she hates Christmas. And there's that great moment in the movie where she's talking about why Christmas has always been very traumatic to her and the juxtaposition of the tragedy in her past with what Christmas represents and all that kind of stuff plays a fundamental part of the movie. I believe you can make an argument. I'm not saying I will, but I think you can make an argument that Gremlins is a Christmas movie. It's certainly, in my opinion, more of a Christmas movie than Die Hard is, in my opinion. Trading Places, can't remember. Dan Aykroyd, Eddie Murphy, I remember the movie. It's been so many years since I've seen it, and I can't remember to what degree Christmas plays a role in it, so I'm going to have to take a pass on that one. But good question, Maz. All right, Alex Pitt writes, been binge watching The Boys today, and it's phenomenal. It's so fun, but it's not for the faint of heart. Yeah, just from the trailers, Alex, I think we can tell it's not for the faint of heart. The acting is also top notch. I'm very excited. First of all, you got Karl Urban in there, and I just geek out about Karl Urban. I love Karl Urban as a performer. I love it when he's on screen. I don't think there's anything this guy can't do. And he's one of the big reasons that I'm quite excited about it. Gonna watch it today. I'm very, very excited. All right. Jared Oberfeld writes, going to the movies 3 times between now and Wednesday for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Back to the Future, and Kiki's Delivery Service, like the old Miyazaki film? Or is that a remake, or are you just talking about watching the old one again? It's been forever since I've seen that. Anyway, man, sounds like a good day at the movie theaters, my friend. Back to the Future playing in a theater somewhere. That's interesting. Jared follows up with, Monday marks 30 years to the day. So it is the original one. Okay, marks 30 years to the day that Kiki opened in Japan. I did not realize that. 30 years. Oh my goodness. I still remember the poster of it too. The little girl that just riding the bike. Anyway, good on you, man. That sounds like a fun day. Have yourself a good day at the movie theaters. And if it's at Regal, ask them about their pass and say, why is it called unlimited when it's not unlimited? Can you ask them that for me? If you happen to go to a Regal cinema today, Jared, I would appreciate that. Have fun today, man. All right. Froygon Jin writes, if Lando appears in The Mandalorian, would you cast Billy D. Williams and de-age him? No. Or Donald Glover and age him up? Well, wait a second. When does The Mandalorian takes place then. Would you have to do much aging? Because doesn't The Mandalorian happen just after Mandalorian, if I'm not mistaken, happens after the events of the Return of the Jedi, before the events of The Force Awakens. So would I de-age? No, that's too complicated, too expensive. No point in doing that. Plus, honestly, if you've seen, I've seen Billy D in person a couple times last year or two, and he's not very mobile right now. He just has a little bit of, he can still get around, but it's a little bit more of a struggle for him. So it would be more than just de-aging his face. And why would you do that if you've got another guy who's also Lando in the cinematic universe? Not that Donald Glover would be available, but I would probably go Donald Glover. I would probably go Donald Glover in that for Mandalorian, if that were to happen. But then again, I don't know if you can get either of them. All right. Dim-Sum05 writes, how the heck did it take a freaking Spider-Man movie this long to make $1 billion? Unreal. Now it's Superman's turn if we get one. Well, I mean, again, keep in mind, Dim-Sum, that the unfortunate thing is with the MCU and the money that a lot of their films make, people are just thinking of that, oh yeah, billion's easy. Remember, in the history of cinema, I think we're at 40 something, but less than 50 films in the history of cinema, probably less than 45, in the history of cinema have made over $1 billion. What I'm afraid is that people are going to get used to seeing, oh, Endgame makes this, and Aquaman makes that, and Black Panther made this, and just start thinking that the $1 billion mark is now the norm. It's not. It is an outrageously huge milestone. Outrageously huge milestone. Let's not forget that. Let's not forget that. It's not like 30 films every year join the $1 billion club, right? It's still just a handful of movies each year will join that club. It's still a remarkable accomplishment. And it making $1 billion doesn't mean we should look at the other Spider-Man movies and go, whoa, well, why were all the other Spider-Man movies failures? You know what I mean? And I think we're in danger of getting to that point. So let's not forget just how big of an accomplishment it really is to hit that $1 billion mark. Anyway, Calvin Black Deer sends in a really big super chat. Thank you so much, Calvin, for supporting the channel on that level, man. I really do appreciate that. Let's see. I bet your parents taught you that you mean something. That you're, speaking about your icon there as a Batman thing. Okay. That you're here for a reason. My parents taught me a different lesson. Dying in the gutter for no reason at all. They taught me the world makes sense if you force it to. Okay, look. I know we've talked a lot about DCU, why aren't they doing Superman? A lot of people didn't like them, all that kind of stuff. I liked Batman versus Superman. And even though I know Batman versus Superman had its problems, I know that. I'm not sticking my head in the sand. I know Batman versus Superman has its problems, totally do. But I still really enjoy that movie, man. I still really enjoy that movie. And the Batman iteration in that movie, and there are much better Batman movies, particularly Christopher Nolan's, there are much better Batman movies, but it's this stuff, man, that why Ben Affleck is actually my favorite Batman to date. I'm not as thrilled with what they did to him in Justice League, but the Batman as played by Ben Affleck in Batman vs. Superman to this day is my favorite iteration of Batman on film to this day. Not that it's my favorite Batman movie to this day, but that it's my favorite iteration of the character to this day. To this day, I don't think they talk about it a little bit in the Christian Bale ones. Even then, I don't think Christian Bale's iteration of Batman really got, and Christian Bale's a better actor than Ben Affleck, but I don't think Christian Bale ever truly got that if you really understand Batman, you know that Bruce Wayne died in that alley when their parents died, and the Batman was born. And from that point on, Bruce Wayne was the mask. Beneath him was a lot of anger and a lot of righteous rage and a desire to protect those against those who would do them harm, and to see those who would do harm to the innocents brought to swift and brutal, if non-lethal in the comics, but even the comics suggest that Batman does kill, by the way, brutal justice. And to me, Ben Affleck understood that aspect of Batman better than anybody else who's played the role before. And that's why, and I know a lot of people disagree with me, and that's cool. We're still friends. We can disagree about this and still be friends. But that's why, to me, Ben's iteration of Batman in Batman vs. Superman is the best iteration of Batman we've had. And yet another reason why I was desperately wanted to see Ben Affleck stay as Batman. But hey, it is what it is. Anyway, great quote, Calvin. Great quote. And thank you so much for supporting the channel at that level, man. Appreciate it. All right. Oh my God, we've gone over 2 hours already. Okay, so we're gonna keep going for a little bit here, guys. We'll get through a few more of these. The Sock writes, favorite movie that makes you uncomfortable? Mine is The Gift. Haven't seen him in much, but that was the performance I've seen Joel Edgerton give. First of all, Joel Edgerton is fantastic. He's fantastic. And he's great in a lot. My favorite performance of his is probably in Warrior that he does with Tom Hardy. Love him in that. But there's a couple of movies that I love that make me very uncomfortable. I talk about them sometimes. Movies that I love, but I can't watch them again. The recent one they did like 2 years ago, Detroit. Great movie. I can't watch it again. Schindler's List. I don't think I'll ever be able to watch that movie. I'm going to go with Schindler's List. That is the best movie that I am just too uncomfortable to watch again. Love that one. It's genius. All right. Chris Warden writes, with the success of shows like Star Trek Discovery, The Expanse, and The Orville, plus shows like Mandalorian, Star Trek Picard coming, I can't think of any other time where we had this much high-quality sci-fi and TV. I agree, man. And there are people who like and dislike some of the sci-fi that's on TV right now. The Orville, I think, is hit and miss, but its good shows are really good. I love Star Trek Discovery, but not everybody does. The Expanse is really good. I cannot wait for Picard, although who knows if Picard or Mandalorian will be any good. Here's hoping that they are, because they look great. But you know what, Chris? I'm not saying that the best sci-fi show ever is on TV right now, but as a whole, I think you may be right, Chris. I think when you stand back and look at it, I don't think we've ever been, if you're a sci-fi fan, now is a great time. You got more content and good content out there right now than probably at any other time in history. Not that there haven't been better sci-fi shows, but as far as the quantity of it is pretty damn impressive. It's a good time for genre in general on television. We get a lot of comic book stuff on television, a lot of sci-fi stuff coming on television. It's a good time, Chris. It's a really good time. All right, JCL Productions writes, watch the first episode of The Boys. So good, dude. I'm mere a couple of hours away from starting to watch The Boys myself. I cannot wait, JCL. John Demoto writes, Spider-Man Far From Home joining the $1 billion club. 5 of the last 6 Marvel films have done it. Chance at $5 billion. Just an incredible year. It is. Now, remember, technically speaking, Spider-Man Far From Home is not a Marvel film. It is technically a Sony film. So, technically speaking. But Kevin Feige and his crew did produce the movie, so you can throw that in there too. Dude, again, I think we are in danger of starting to take for granted just how huge that $1 billion mark is. I really do think a lot of people are starting to take that for granted, just going, oh, another $1 billion film. Dude, it's a $1 billion film! That's huge! That's huge! It's massive, even if it is technically a Sony movie. Moose Tack Reviews writes, did you see the vid? Again, not going to I've already talked about that, all that I'm going to talk about it. Double Crit writes, who would you cast as Trump/Pence in a biopic? Not touching that, not touching anything political like that. Harry Mudd writes, will John turn on his AC today? I have turned on my AC today. It is hot in the valley, my friends. It is hot in Burbank today, let me tell you. Kyle Ginder writes, I just read from Cosmic Book News that Warner Brothers is so impressed with James Gunn, they want him back after Guardians 3 to look over/produce DCEU properties. Again, I'm not here to talk crap about anybody. All I'm saying is, hey, guess what? Cosmic Movie News sometimes gets things right. There's a lot of stuff that gets written on that site that is not remotely true at all. Any studio that works with a director that's a good director and likes their stuff would like to work more with them. There's no news there. That's nothing new. So I'm not. I wouldn't take that very seriously at this point. I really wouldn't, to be honest with you. But because we know that after that's done, he's going to go back to Marvel, and then we'll see what happens. Harry Mudd writes, would love to see Mountain of Madness as a movie, but in lieu of that, In the Month of Madness is a good alternative. In the Mouth of Madness. What? I gotta be honest with you. I'm not sure what we're talking. The Mountain of Madness? Are we talking about Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness? I would love to see the Mountain of Madness. Or is the Mountain of Madness a thing that I'm just not thinking of? I'm sorry, Harry. Got to admit, man, I'm not following you, buddy. Sorry about that, my friend. Harry then writes, still remember DiCaprio and What's Eating Gilbert Grape. Already back then, he was an awesome actor. And he got an Academy Award nomination for that. I mean, back then when he was a kid, and he was in that with Johnny Depp, and he got an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor as a kid. He got that. I don't know if we knew then, even from watching What's Eating Gilbert Grape, just how special of a career this guy would have. One of the best careers ever in Hollywood. And it's just getting started. It's just getting started. Joseph Slade writes, watching Good Time, that's a good one, with Pattinson has won me over. Yeah, seriously. And I'm so glad you brought that up, Joseph, because a lot of things, when people were poo-pooing on the whole idea of Pattinson as Batman, I'm like, have you seen any of his movies other than Twilight? No? Okay. I suggest you check some of those out because I think you might change your mind after you see just how good of an actor he is. And I'm super glad you had a chance to watch that, Joseph. That's a great movie. Coolsome XD writes, funny thing about your driving comment about Once Upon a Time, cheesy Mystery Science Theater 3000 / Riff Tracks movies have silent car scenes to pad the movies out a lot as well. Never really noticed that before. Never really noticed that. But guys, seriously, write to me in the comments. For those of you who have seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, am I crazy about telling you about how it seems like they just drag on those exterior car driving by shots forever? Is it just me? Because I'm telling you, man, that it just, boom, it was right there in your face every time. Anyway, Tim Leaney writes, over under 5%, Jane Foster becomes Mighty Thor by mind swapping with Thor a la Shakespeare's Freaky Friday. We've talked about that on the show before. Could this be a Freaky Friday situation where Thor and Jane, something wacky happens, maybe something Loki does just out of mischief, not as a villain, but just out of mischief. Maybe Loki finds a way to swap them up, and they do a little bit of Freaky Friday. It's possible. Let's put it this way. I haven't seen anything at the Marvel panel that was directly said by Taika Waititi or Chris Hemsworth or Natalie Portman that exclude the possibility that it could be a Freaky Friday situation. It might be. I'm going to go over 5%. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but if you're going to set the number as low as 5%, I might even say there's like a 12%, 15% maybe even chance of that. So still highly unlikely. But yeah, I'll take over 5%, Tim. Ryan Lohner writes, the biggest movie ever has been Spielberg. The biggest movie ever has been Spielberg, Lucas, or Cameron. Oh, since 1975. And now it's the You, Me, and Dupree. It's all about perspective, Ryan. And that is definitely one way of looking at it. That is definitely one perspective of looking at it. Now, instead of it being either a Spielberg, Lucas, or James Cameron movie as the number one all-time film, it's now the guys who directed You, Me, and Dupree. Of course, talking about the Russo brothers who have done such a great job on their films in the MCU, but it is funny to think about. These are the guys who did You, Me, and Dupree. Go figure. Nat Zegri writes, just have a couple of minutes left here, guys. We're going to wrap this thing up at the half hour here. Nat Zegri writes, any chance we'd ever see you with Dennis and Amy Rose again? Was starting college when I first saw y'all. AMC days, also favorite Schnepp memory. I got too many memories of Schnepp. A lot of them probably have to do with Comic-Con. Just it's the off-camera stuff with Schnepp that I remember the most. As far as working with Dennis and Amy Rose, no, because, they're off doing different things. Amy Rose, by the way, is now a filmmaker. She's not doing this piddly little shitty stuff that I'm doing, talking online about. She's actually out there making films now. And Dennis has got a gig. So, no, probably not going to see it. Dennis and I still hang out. Like, he comes over, we watch UFC. I love Dennis. Dennis is like one of the best guys in the business. I love Dennis then. He's the best. But no, you're probably not going to see us working together again, unfortunately. Le Poopy writes, Regal Sub is the Spirit Airlines of theaters. Just kidding. Hey, Spirit Airlines will get you from here to there, buddy, right? So it's still a good thing. Gaetan Fowl writes, in France, my unlimited pass cost me $16.90 for 10 to 15 movies a month. That's great. That's awesome. I don't know how much a movie normally costs in France. I don't know what all the benefits of the card are. I don't know what the restrictions of the card are, but that sounds like a pretty damn good deal. Krieger119 writes, Lucifer final season will supposedly be 16 episodes. I had people sending me this on social media this morning just as I was about to start the show. So Lucifer season 3, I believe, was only 10 episodes. And now we found out that next episode, it did get renewed for next season, and it'll be its last season. They're saying now, the reports are coming out, that they're adding 6 additional episodes to it. So instead of just being 10, it's going to be 16. In Game of Thrones years, that's like adding an entirely new season, because Game of Thrones final season was only 6 episodes. So it's like they're adding a whole new season. I think that's great. I was very, very happy to hear that, Krieger. All right, let's see. Final one here comes to us from Jesse, who writes, say, John, hearing you talk about the cost of movie tickets in LA makes me glad I'm from a small ass town. My tickets are usually around $9, thankfully. Absolutely. Because for me, just to go to a regular, now I have A-list now, so there's that. But before I had A-list, for me to go to AMC and watch a regular screening of a regular movie, say Wednesday evening, I was paying $16, $17. Now, if I wanted to go to the theater that I really want to go to in that AMC, which is the Prime or the Dolby Prime or whatever, I'm looking at paying $23, $24 per ticket. Per ticket. It's crazy expensive to go to the movies here in LA, and I'm sure it is in New York as well. But man, yeah, that's pretty cool that where you are, $9 a ticket and away you go. Take advantage of that, my friend. All right, you know what? I think we're going to end it there, but I think I saw one person sent in like one ridiculously massive super chat, and I want to get to this because another Skywalker, I saw this come in, send in $100 super chat. Thank you, another Skywalker, for supporting the channel on that level, dude. Thank you so much. I'm overwhelmed by that. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. So he writes, sorry you have to deal with this Andy fellow. Hope your weekend goes better. I saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I thought it was great. Yeah, see, I don't know. And again, thank you, another Skywalker, very, very much. I don't know that I would call it great, but I had quite a good time. I think it's solid. Even when you add all the negative things about it, when you measure them up against all the positives about it, it still comes out quite positive for me. A lot of great memorable moments, fantastic ending to the film, some beautiful stuff in it. I think it's a movie worth seeing. And I enjoyed it, and I give it the thumbs up. I think it's good. Is it one of the better, to me? Is it one of the better Tarantino films? I would say no. I don't think it's one of the better ones, but it is damn good, and I do like it. So I don't think it cracks the top 5 for me, but it's certainly not the worst movie Tarantino's made either. So yeah, there's that for me. So anyway, thank you for your thoughts, another Skywalker. I really appreciate that. Okay, guys, that will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. For everybody else who still has super chats outstanding here, do not worry. I am going to be getting, so where are we at here? From Goran and Harry Mudd and Gaetan and Ladislav and Santez and everybody else all the way down. For the rest of you who sent in those questions, do not worry. I'm going to make today a companion video, probably on my treadmill. It's going to be a walk and talk companion video where I'm going to answer all your questions. Now, some of you may have noticed I didn't put up a companion video yesterday. That's because when I actually gathered up all the unused questions, there was only enough questions there to do like a 15-minute video. And I thought, you know what? Instead of just doing a little 15-minute video, I'll just add those questions to today's companion video questions. And we'll get yesterday's questions and today's questions all done today in a companion video today. Keep your guys' eyes open for that. Anyway, guys, that will do it for me for today. Thank you all for being here. Congratulations on making it through another work week. May you have a mighty plan for your weekend ahead of you. May you kick all sorts of ass and be ready to face next week again. Don't forget, we're going to have open mic tomorrow, and on Sunday, we're going to have an open mic in the morning, but also on Sunday afternoon, we're going to do an open spoiler discussion for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. If you have seen the film by then, feel free to come on and join us for that open spoiler discussion. Guys, have a marvelous day. In the words of Bill and Ted, be excellent to one another. That'll do for me, guys. Until next time, bye-bye.